Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants.
Welcome, listeners, to the latest episode of the Fort Worth 148 Masonic Podcast. My name is Evve Kuykendall, and I am the Worshipful Master of Fort Worth Lodge.
Jeremy Gwin, I am the Junior Warden for Fort Worth Lodge.
Brandy Patton, Secretary of Fort Worth Lodge.
I'm Evve Kuykendall, Senior Deacon of the same.
Sean Baun, Junior Deacon, Fort Worth Lodge 148.
Billy Hamilton, past master and current Tyler of Fort Worth 148.
And we have a special guest with us today.
Don Paul Payton, past master, McKenzie Lodge, number 1327 in beautiful downtown Lubbock, Texas.
So, listeners, Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Hope you all had a great holiday season. As many of you know, Grand Lodge Communication is coming up, Grand Lodge 2022. And so that's what our subject matter is about this episode. We are going to be discussing Grand Lodge Communication and more specifically the resolutions that are up for discussion and vote at the same. So we'll go ahead and get right into the meat of the subject. No discussion questions this time because these are all discussion questions. And we'll get started with just a couple of them that are holdovers from 2021. I guess before we do get started, I do want to let our listeners know, if you are listening to this podcast and you are the author of one of the resolutions, and we say something in favor or against, this is just our opinion, and it's just kind of the way that we're interpreting the proposed resolution. I would hope that nobody takes anything personally.
Getting them ready for debate.
Getting them ready, yes, exactly. Listen to our podcast and think about how to prove us wrong. More specifically, since DP is probably the most experienced here, think about how to prove DP wrong. That'll get you started. So,
Love
yeah.
it.
So nothing's personal. Everything's in the interest of the betterment of Masonry. Let's discuss resolution number 3, holdover 2021.
And this is just changing the dates because we moved from December to January for Grand Lodge.
Yep.
Requiring, it affects several dates.
So now, resolution number 7, holdover 2021, is kind of interesting. I was looking at the list of proposed resolutions, and as far as I can tell, resolution number 7, holdover 2021, and resolution 17 are the same resolution. So I'll read the text for resolution number 7 here. Whereas Article 316 allows the exemption of dues to lodges and the per capita to the Grand Lodge of Texas on members in the Texas Masonic Retirement Center, 50-year service awardees, and certain military personnel. And whereas endowed members are exempt from payment of dues under Article 318 to the Lodge, therefore be it resolved that Article 316 be amended as follows. Article 316, exemptions. Members in the Texas Masonic Retirement Center, 50-year service awardees, endowed members, and certain military personnel. Every member admitted to the Texas Masonic Retirement Center maintained by the Grand Royal Arch Chapter of Texas, so long as he is a beneficiary of said home, endowed members, and every member entitled to a 50-year Masonic Service Award under Article 14 shall be exempt from dues. Should the brother be a member of more than one in this grand jurisdiction, he shall be exempt in all lodges. In addition, every member who is currently serving on military duty in a combat area may be exempt from dues. Additionally, a lodge may remit the per capita of such members from its annual returns using a certificate furnished by the Grand Secretary to show the current status of each such member. So, the way that I read that is this is a pretty broad spectrum sort of language here, and the phrase, or the sentence, should the brother be a member of more than one in this grand jurisdiction, he shall be exempt in all lodges. Wouldn't that mean that if this adds in the phrase endowed members, wouldn't that mean that a guy could endow in one lodge and then he could be exempt in 7 lodges or whatever if he wanted?
That sounds like to me.
Exactly what that says.
That's why it's worded.
So I think that the unintended consequence of that is it's going to drive people to get endowed in lodges that have very inexpensive endowments, so that they are then endowed in every lodge across the state of Texas.
Do we think that was really the intent?
I don't think that was the intent, but the problem is that intent and verbiage can sometimes conflict.
Right. Now,
What
spirit of
they
law
mean-
versus letter of the law.
You know, what they mean doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to come into effect. The words are
Right.
all that matters. And it
Right.
sounds like that's the case.
Yeah, and our resolution number 17 for this year is the exact same phrasing. It's just got the italics to more accurately denote what the change to the article is. So the holdover resolution doesn't have the italics added, so it's kind of harder to tell. The resolution number 17 does have the italics, and it does add. The only thing that changes there is the addition of endowed members. Let's go ahead and breeze past 6 resolutions here real quick. Resolutions 3, 8, and 18 are lodge name changes. Those usually don't have a whole lot of discussion involved. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's interesting. At Grand Chapter and Grand Council, we had a council that was trying to change its name, and that generated some interesting discussion,
From one man to another man.
which was it was worthwhile to
Yes,
hear.
not the typical. You know, if you want to change it from a city or a name of something, say Phoenix to Oliver Loving Lodge, but
Yeah.
typically you don't change it from one
Person to another
honorary
person.
brother to another honorary brother.
Yeah, and that's why that generated some discussion at Grand Chapter and Grand Council.
Where it was defeated in the Grand Council.
Correct. After some really interesting oration. Resolutions number 14, 19, and 21 are lodge redistricting. None of us are being affected, or none of us in this room are being affected by that districting. So
I'd hear.
It's-
Wait till you hear the debate between
Yeah.
members from those districts.
that's going to have to be something that we're going to step aside and let that happen at Grand Lodge, because we're not affected by it and we're not really commented.
Yeah, we don't need to
We're
meddle
not
in
really
their
qualified
affairs.
to comment on it. So.
Yeah.
Let's talk resolution number 1 for 2022. It amends Article 225 to allow the Philadelphia Society to meet in Texas. And so, for those of you that don't know, Article 225 is a long list of organizations that are allowed to meet in Texas and that Texas Masons are allowed to be members of. So, were they previously allowed to meet in Texas?
Sure. Before 2004, I believe.
Okay. So, basically,
Double check that, but I believe I'm correct about
Yeah. So,
Billy, does that sound right?
Yeah, actually, and that does sound about right. I know that they were recognized and they were de-recognized, so that's something to consider. Would be the original circumstances under which they were de-recognized.
So, yeah, but beyond that, I don't have a whole lot of comment on that other than cool, I guess.
I'm going to wait and hear the discussion.
Yeah. So here's resolution number 2. It creates resolution number 2 creates the Committee on Disaster Response to help the Grand Lodge of Texas mobilize as a force of emergency aid during times of crisis. What do you guys think about that? Because there were a lot of changes that are involved in the verbiage of that. Any particular thoughts, guys?
Do we have a copy of this? I want to look at this. 'Cause
we've got a.
my question is, okay, so we're going to mobilize in force of emergency, but for the relief of individuals, lodges, lodge members, because I mean that's a pretty big.
So
I guess without looking at the words on it.
This is making it a 7-year committee, I believe.
yeah. So basically, a lot of the disaster response stuff right now.
Permanent.
Permanent.
This is making it a permanent committee.
Yeah. A lot of disaster response stuff is currently handled under the Committee on Masonic Education and Service. Because, for example, if we look at Article 111, Article 111 says Masonic Education and Service. It shall be the duty of the Committee on Masonic Education and Service to formulate a system of instruction in the fundamental principles, symbolisms, teachings, and practical application of Masonry to aid the Grand Master in extending aid and relief in case of public disaster arising from cyclones, earthquakes, floods, and other catastrophes. In the case of any public calamity, the activities of said committee shall be subject to the personal supervision and direction of the Grand Master. So, we have a committee that, the Committee on Masonic Education and Service does have within its scope of work disaster relief. Basically, this would strike disaster relief from their list of duties and then create a separate committee for that.
Did they talk about like finances and what's going to cost
Well,
to
Yeah,
run
so
this committee? And
In the resolution it lists, what all they want them to do, come up with established financial plans, preparations, response to natural disasters, so forth. But my opinion, I'll be the bad guy here. I'll play the devil's advocate.
okay.
The Grand Master at any time can create an ad hoc committee to deal with situations as they may come about.
Yeah.
Do we need to create a permanent committee consisting of 7 members throughout the year? Do we have enough committees that can deal with this, or do we need to
kinda my
create
thought.
more committees?
that's kind of my thought. Is like, do we have enough emergencies to necessitate a on guard, a standby committee to handle this? I mean, we're talking emergency like a tornado through Kentucky recently. Okay, I mean that's first of all that's extrajudicial, but
Or
you know,
hurricanes,
yeah,
like down
hurricane or
around the
something like that.
Netherlands.
But how frequently do we have this? Do we need a standing committee for this?
Also, not to speak ill of any brothers, but given the Grand Master has the authority to create an ad hoc committee and choose members for that committee to be able to best serve an individual type of emergency, people's experience counted in that versus given a how many member permanent committee, say here you go, and they may not be the best solution. It's using a broadsword when you need a scalpel.
Yeah.
So if you read this under Article 105, there is currently listed on here 21 permanent committees. This would be number 22.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Excuse me. I have feelings, and
You
those
have feelings?
Holy
cow.
I know, this is
Listeners, we'd like to inform you, Evie is a human being.
I have feelings.
Oh no.
So, first of all, as a citizen of the state of Texas, do we not have better organizations that are better equipped to fulfill disaster relief efforts? Now, I understand that this is for Masonic disaster relief in a way that helps specifically lodges and brothers and their families, widows and orphans. I get all that. Wonderful. But to have a standing committee that is going, I just don't like this idea. It just doesn't feel like it's an organization, a committee we need. It, like Sean says, I don't think that we can plan for people to have the right kind of skill sets necessary for this on the committee at all times, unless we have, one person or seven people who are disaster relief experts. Chances are we're not going to have disaster relief experts on this committee, and it's going to be brethren like ourselves who are volunteering or voluntold to be put on this committee. And they are going to be reaching out like any of us would. It is much better, in my view, that the Grand Master has the ability and the flexibility to pull the committee together and to pick people in that moment that best reflect the needs of that moment, not to have a standing committee that doesn't reflect the situation on the ground.
That's totally fair. What do you guys think, would it be better to have the Committee on Masonic Education and Service draft up like a set of policies that we say, okay, hey, here are the policies that we wrote. This is how you structure an ad hoc committee. Go.
That's what the Article 111, Masonic Education and Service. It shall be the duty of the Committee on Masonic Education and Service to formulate a system of instruction and the fundamental purposes, symbolism, teachings, and practical application of Masonry, and then
to aid
the Grand Master in extending aid and relief in case of public disasters arising from cyclones, earthquakes, floods, and other catastrophes.
It sounds like trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and passing more bureaucratic resolutions. And adding more processes just for the sake of having processes is not valuable to the fraternity in the long term.
Right, you're making the body more cumbersome and ineffective, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Billy, you have any thoughts?
I mean, the structure's already there. I think the way I look at it is it looks like it's just kind of creating another committee. Yeah, I know we need to have a quick response to, two issues when they come up, but I mean, it's already under the purview of another committee. Personally, I don't really see the need, unless just the Masonic Education Committee is so overwhelmed that they're not able to adequately respond to these situations.
Yeah, and that in and of itself may be its own problem. If the guys from the Committee on Education and Service say, hey, listen, we can't do this 100% on our own. Although, not that we're saying that they are saying that or anything, not to put words in anybody's mouth.
You clarify the rules and actually specify what they can assist them with.
Yeah.
I mean, just throw the pandemic in there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a huge problem that we all have to deal with, but is that committee best equipped to handle that?
Yeah.
That's why the
Maybe
Grand Master
exclude
already has that authority.
Pandemics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it like you can write a check to every lodge, hey, we know you're suffering,
Yeah.
here's our whole bankroll.
But through that process and through the Masonic Education and Service Committee's instruction of creating a set of instructions for ad hoc committees, the Grand Master has his tool. He has the best tool for that job in the toolbox already.
It does fall under Masonic Education, though, on how to react as a lodge. Like, my first call, if my lodge is flooded or burning down, I'm going to get a hold of FEMA. Maybe people don't realize that. Call FEMA. They can help you.
Yeah.
Or get
And that's why you're the secretary.
Yeah. But there's other
There's
organizations.
just some campers to stay in.
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, but formaldehyde, man, it preserves you when you're gone.
Why does it smell so moldy?
Yeah, I'm with you. We have a lot of committees.
It's okay.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and tackle resolution number 4.
So-
I'm going to go ahead.
Actually, by the way,
Oh, yes.
I went back and I took a look at the 2004 Grand Lodge proceedings to see exactly why the Philately Society was unrecognized or de-recognized.
Now, what was that?
So apparently, they had issued a local charter to a local chapter in Paris, France, and among its 12 charter members are listed members and grand officers of the irregular Grand Lodge of France.
They weren't
And so that was the catalyst that pulled for its de-recognition, was the fact that they had issued a charter to a overseas body composed of irregular Masons.
There you go.
So I would assume that has now.
I don't assume anything.
Okay. Yeah,
I
no,
don't
you're
assume
right.
anything.
I shall not assume.
Billy,
But
Billy, can you find out and get back to us and let us know what the
Phone a
status
friend.
is of that
no,
today?
I guess we can say one would hope that has been rectified.
Yeah.
Well, so the interesting thing is, so it was resolution number 33 that came up that year. It was, past Grandmaster Reese Harrison, I believe that was his year when he was presiding, in the committee that weighed in on it. The chairman was Pete Norman, both of which I imagine would be at this annual communication. So it'd be interesting to hear what both of them have to say about the issue.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and tackle resolution number 4, and I'll go ahead and read out the full text because it's short and I feel like it helps. Whereas lodges under the jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge of Texas participate in raffles for fundraising purposes, and there are strict laws and regulations under the laws of the state of Texas regarding such raffles and fundraisers that must be adhered to in order to ensure compliance with such state laws. Therefore, be it resolved that Article 648 of Title 5 of the laws of the Grand Lodge, Texas be amended as follows. Article 648, lotteries, raffles, etc. It is a Masonic offense for any lodge to raise money by lotteries or other gambling devices, with the exception of legal charitable raffles conducted in compliance with the laws of the state of Texas. And here's the addition. Each lodge desiring to conduct a raffle for fundraising purposes shall submit a copy of the raffle ticket and a copy of the bill of sale for the prize to the office of the Grand Secretary of the Grand Lodge of Texas prior to selling any tickets. DP, you and I were kind of talking about that this morning. before DP and I chime in, kind of for the guys that haven't encountered this one yet, what is kind of your immediate thoughts on that with the addition of that section in italics?
Well, I would be interested to hear the people who analyze this for its legal compliance, because it seems to me that this sounds like it's transferring responsibility of the legal implications of conducting an illegal raffle from the lodge to the Grand Lodge. Because if the Grand Lodge is suddenly responsible for making sure that a lodge is conducting a raffle in accordance with state law, then it's the Grand Lodge's sudden responsibility, and they would be the liable institution in this case. And if that transfer of responsibility is my big concern, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't pretend to be, I don't play one on TV, so I would be really interested to hear what the thoughts are on that potential transfer of legal
Nowhere
responsibility.
does it say it must be approved by.
But it has to be sent to, so
Yes, before you sell tickets.
and so why would you be sending it to the Grand Secretary if it wasn't for some sort of approval?
They can nip it before it becomes a problem.
And if they nip it, that's approval.
That's approval.
But it sounds more
Yeah,
like
because
this
the moment that you say no, you can't do that,
Is the
it
moment
becomes
it
a
becomes
tacit.
responsible.
It becomes a tacit approval for all the ones that you
And if
didn't
they
say.
and if
no,
they
you
do
can't
it
that
once, then they are now responsible for all of it.
This seems like a district issue, not a grand secretary.
Well, but if it's going to the Grand Secretary and the Grand Secretary has any opinion on it whatsoever, suddenly
So he's
he
liable all of a
yes,
sudden.
suddenly he is the one who's making the decision.
Are we also going to have more staff for the grand secretary's office? Because that's going to be a big job.
Well, and that's a whole other issue that they can figure out with the budget.
I think my basic understanding of tort law, very, very, very novice basic understanding of tort law. If we put that in our law book, that it must be sent to a higher office prior to engaging in the act, that transfers responsibility to the higher office.
Wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting any of this, but it's
That's-
all valid points.
That's why the approval's not mentioned.
They didn't have to be.
Yeah.
Implied consent or implied approval exists
But,
there.
but there's also a scare tactic of, oh, I'm sending this to grand secretary. I better make sure I'm doing it on the up and
Yeah,
up.
but the law books don't care about scare tactics, and neither does
and if
the.
suddenly we're breaking the law, the government and the district attorney who decides that they're going to go after this person, they're not going to go after the lodge with the shallow pockets. They're going to go after the organization with the deep pockets. And the Grand Lodge of Texas has deeper pockets than any lodge does.
This is true.
So the problem with this, though, is that there's a risk of that to begin with, right? Because when you think about it, you look at every constituent lodge is almost like a branch office of a larger corporation as the Grand Lodge of Texas. So I understand the reasoning behind the feeling of a need to do something, because there's a lot of lodges out there that aren't fully complying with the strict laws and regulations of having a raffle. There's very specific information that has to be included in every raffle ticket. There's a limitation on how many you can have per year, which a lot of lodges either aren't aware of, or they just ignore it. And then there's a time length, a length of time when you can have a raffle, and all of that is very important. And if any of that gets questioned by the state of Texas, it could end up in the loss of the 501c10 status for all lodges across Texas, including the Grand Lodge. So it's a problem that it does need to be addressed. It needs to be fixed. I'm not sure if this is the proper way to do it, but the risk is that some lodge that's running a raffle in a legal manner, whether it's intentional or not, has the risk of creating this complication for all lodges across Texas.
Well, the issue that I would also push back against that is that it hasn't happened yet, because every one of the lodges, as constituent lodges of the Grand Lodge, have individual bylaws. And those individual bylaws are unique to each lodge, which insulate the Grand Lodge from that sort of liability. Now, is it a gray area? Absolutely. But I think that this takes it out of the gray area and puts it directly in the line of fire for transfer of liability. Again, I'm not a lawyer, don't pretend to be. I'm just saying that's my concern, and I'm very interested in hearing what the people who are going to analyze this for legal implications has to say.
Okay.
Yeah, the Committee on Jurisprudence, I believe, is the one. I'm very interested to hear what they
Well, I
want to say.
wonder
on
if
it.
It would be civil law.
Is it civil law?
Is it jurisprudence
Well-
for Masonic law, or is it jurisprudence for
Jurisprudence is
Texas
for
law?
Masonic law.
Right. Okay.
So there, I'm
so
sure that
we-
somebody
we have the-
is
we
and
gonna
we will
be-
hear them. They will
Yeah.
speak. I'm
We
confident.
have a dedicated committee called the Committee on Civil Law.
Okay.
So,
So-
this has actually been referred to both of those committees.
Okay.
This resolution, believe it or not, but there are some some Masonic lodges, possibly throughout the state, that holds raffles that, for a said price, say it's a gun or a new guitar, that they don't even own the prize they're raffling.
You have to legally own the
Yes,
prize, right?
Yes, and for anybody for clarification on the requirements to hold a legal raffle on behalf of the state of Texas for 501c3s, you can go to the state of Texas Attorney General's website and it lists the clarifications on that. This makes it a Masonic offense, so that means there's two ways of looking at this. One, this is covering your rear end. Send it to the grant secretary. They'll look at it, say, hey, because some lodges will do a raffle. Hey, we're doing 40 guns in 40 days. Well, that's 40 raffles, but they don't see it that way. So you need to have, some lodges need guidance and may need Big Brother, per se, to say, hey, this is to cover your rear end in case you can't do this legally like this. You need to change it to this, to this, to this, to this. That way everybody's okay. The state of Texas is good with it. Because this makes it a Masonic offense, so you could file Masonic charges on somebody that did not do this. Just like you can now, if somebody holds a, per se, reading this law of any to raise money for lotteries, conduct charitable raffles conducted in compliance with the laws of the state of Texas. So right now, the way this law is written, if somebody you know of is not holding a legal Masonic raffle, you could file Masonic charges on them and have a trial if it went to it, and they could be kicked out of Masonry.
So, but you wouldn't need.
Sounds a bit
But
extreme.
you wouldn't need the process of sending it to the Grand Secretary's office in order to be able to do
Right.
that.
This is just to cover lodges' rear ends. Kind of
Yeah.
what y'all have all kind of been talking about right here.
So-
Let them look at it first. They'd kick it back and say, hey, you need to change this.
Yeah.
Do you own it? Do you have the price?
Which I'm thinking, like, man, we're totally skipping the whole part of whispering wise counsel. Hey, brother, I don't think you're quite doing this right.
Yeah.
Please refer to the law book, which does tell you how to do a rifle
We
correctly.
could spend the last year of
And then,
the person submitting this one giving a spiel.
yeah,
The officer
times a
leadership
week.
training.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, OLT
So
covers
I heard it
this.
4 times.
My,
Yeah.
my big concern is what Evve brought up, and what Sean kind of added to was the transfer of liability. Because I didn't, when you and I talked about it this morning, DP,
Yeah, we didn't discuss
we kind of kicked it back and forth, and we had different thoughts on it and stuff. And then I wasn't expecting any of that, but I feel like that's all very valid points, because that would assume a lot of liability all at once for the Grand Lodge in a very ugly sort of way.
And then the question suddenly becomes: Is the Grand Secretary, if that is the case, the person that needs to be answering that or kicking it back or not?
That's exactly
Are
what
they legally qualified to offer legal advice to a lodge?
And I would say the answer is no.
Unless he is a lawyer, and that is part of his tasked job at the Grand Secretary's office. Now all of a sudden we're getting into a lot of really gray areas about offering a lodge legal advice about something.
And it doesn't say on here that the Grand Secretary okays it. Maybe, I'll use Gabe's word, assume.
Hey,
Coming from the guy who said I never assume.
I'm going to use.
I
hold on,
agree
let me
with
go,
DP.
Let me go
Let's
from
go.
my
One
age
would
group.
hope.
One would hope that the Grand Secretary at that time would pass it over to the Civil Law Committee and say, hey, here's the blood. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray in it.
Yeah.
Like you
Well,
said.
and if that's how it's going to be handled, then I think that the resolution needs to be amended to say that it needs to be handed to the secretary, who will then transfer it to the Civil Law Committee for review. And if we're going to assume responsibility in that sort of capacity for telling constituent lodges how they need to be running a raffle, then it needs to be done by the book in a way that's actually going to protect them, not in a way that just creates this illusion oh, we've checked off the box of emailing it to the Grand Secretary, and he said sure.
So I've been sitting over here chewing on what you just said. That was going to be my next point. And additionally, one would think, not even one would hope, one would think that as a Grand Lodge, as an institution, and already having a Masonic Law Jurisprudence Committee and a Civil Law Committee, that we have the process for a lodge to say, hey, boss, we want to make sure that we're on the up and up. Who do we talk to?
Yeah, and normally the answer is, hey, any questions like that, talk to your DDGM. However, your DDGM cannot answer them for you.
Right.
He still should not. Good clarification.
Right.
He still has to pass it on to, I guess traditionally in the DDGM's line, he would pass it on to the Grand Master because that's his direct line of communication. Realistically, that should be going to the Grand Secretary, who then distributes it to
Yeah, I mean, you can refer to your DDGM, but that doesn't mean you're saying, hey, what's the correct answer?
There should be like a hotline kind of thing. Basically.
Right.
Well, and the problem that I have
1-800 Civil Law.
Yeah, the big problem that I have with this is it's creating the illusion of legal protection.
Yeah.
It's creating the illusion of authorization. And if the Grand Lodge, through this resolution, wants to clean up the raffle problems that we're having in this state with our lodges, then they need to have an approval authority that says, we're going to take responsibility out of the lodges, and we're going to make sure that we're doing raffles and that we're not letting our lodges put us or them in legal trouble.
All right.
That needs to be, and if that's not done, and this resolution, in my view, in my very amateurish view, doesn't do that, then this isn't a resolution that we need. It's a resolution that creates like this smoke screen.
I'm ready to hear your
So here's
opinion
here's my question on this. Evve, do we actually have a raffle problem in Texas?
Yes.
Do we?
Yes.
I mean,
Valid.
I thought from my reading of the Grand Lodge law, it seems pretty darn clear cut what we do and do not have. And I mean, I thought the law was pretty darn clear to me on, hey, these are the rules. If you're going to do this, you've got to have these things in place. Period. End of report. Done.
Okay, so what we should say is, it is the general understanding that we know that there are constituent lodges that are out there just running amok. Okay?
All right.
So
I'll accept
while
that.
Grand
And
Lodge,
to give them the benefit of the doubt, either intentionally or unintentionally,
Probably-
they may not know that they're running
I would say
amok.
Okay.
unintentional.
yeah,
I would
probably
hope unintentionally.
The vast
Right.
majority, you're not going to have people sneaking around being like, I can
get away with it."
sneak around and host a charitable raffle for children.
DP's example of 40 guns in 40 days is a good one because that's 40 raffles. That's not a raffle.
Yeah. Because a lot of times you're going to think of it as like, oh, this is one event,
Yeah.
but it's not.
And there are, and I don't have the
I
Attorney
think-
General site, but there are limits to how many you can do per year.
I think it's two.
Two, yeah.
Two drawings.
That's going to be a good debate. I'm looking forward to it. And
Exactly. I'm
Sam's
looking
one of my
forward
best friends, and we
Wait,
share a room at
is he
Grand
the
Lodge.
author? Is he the author of this?
He
Yeah,
is.
Sam
And
Gibbons.
we share a
Sam
room.
Gibbons? Oh, I love Sam.
We share, and
love
Sam
Sam.
does a great job with the officer leadership training, talking about raffles.
He does.
And the bad thing is, not everybody goes to those. So, you that have gone have heard these things, and you're like,
But a
I
lot
just want the record to show that we at Fort Worth 148, we strongly encourage our members to attend the officer leadership training.
And the officer line is highly, highly encouraged.
Highly trained. Hey, no, we've all been, and it's wonderful, and we can't support it enough.
Yeah. No, I loved going through OLT.
I will say one awesome thing about Sam's speeches about this is I know without a doubt I can't put a raffle on Facebook.
There you go. There you go. And
Because
this is
outside
why.
Texas,
Perfect.
you
This is
can't
why,
do it.
again,
There you
guys, the
Yeah.
listeners, please, if you are in the jurisdiction of Texas, please send your people to OLT. Send them. It is just a wealth of knowledge. I've had them both, and I look forward to going to both of them again, just
Yeah.
because you can't drink from the fire hydrant all at once.
Yeah, I mean, I
It's
guess
wonderful.
this may sound like a little bit of an exaggeration, but officer leadership training, the OLT that the Grand Lodge of Texas offers, can literally keep you out of legal trouble as a lodge. Like that's how valuable this is. You're not, no one's going to say that you're inherently going to get into trouble if you don't go to OLT. But if you do send your officers to officer leadership training, you will be much more prepared to operate as a lodge, including legal liability.
Yep.
It's a huge thing.
Here's a plug from a baby Mason, right? I'm a baby master Mason, brand new. I've been here.
When were you raised?
May 24th of 2021.
2 months older.
You're a COVID baby.
Yeah, I'm COVID.
And this is January of 2022, just for the record.
Yeah.
So
So, I've been here for all of about 3.7 minutes. Going to OLT, and I went essentially right after I was raised in July. And the amount of things where I was like, what? No way. What? Really? No way. Really? Wow. The entire time that I was there.
Yeah, it's eye-opening.
Is eye-opening and amazing and helpful. And honestly, going about it the way that I did, where you get raised as a Master Mason and then within 2 months you're there, that's a helpful time to do it because you're fresh and it makes a lasting imprint in your memory to hear those things right out the gate. To understand not so much looking at it as limitations or restrictions, but protections for how to do business as a Master Mason in general, not just an officer.
Yeah, there's also the secretary and treasurer of schools that accompany OLT and Briscoe workshops.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and tackle resolution number 5. DP's been waiting for this one, I think.
I'm ready to hear all y'all's opinions on this.
So I'm going to give a... So because it's a little bit longer, but it has more complexity to it, I'll read a little summary that I wrote up, and then I'll read the actual thing. So resolution number 5 is the creation of the Regional Service Team, which is a permanent committee in charge of dividing the state into, quote, Masonic regions to provide regional support and a regional support structure for districts to contact regional and localized focus needs. I'll read the resolution now. Whereas there is an increasing need for streamlined gathering and distribution of district and level information, lodge level information, as well as emergency and non-emergency relief support. And whereas the Office of the Grand Secretary is primarily focused on matters of statewide and national administrative interest to the Grand Lodge of Texas. And whereas there is no formal regional support structure for districts to contact lodges for regional and localized focused needs within or without Grand Lodge capabilities, and whereas timely processing and approval of Grand Lodge requests to and from districts through a general liaison when needed would prove beneficial to all parties involved, and whereas there is currently no formalized regional map standard coinciding with traditional and or digital communications, therefore be it resolved that Article 126 be amended as follows. Article 126 through 126K remain the same. This is an addition, Article 126L, creation of a regional service team. The Grand Lodge of Texas shall create a permanent committee to serve as a direct regional contact for communicating and facilitating localized and statewide information and resources to all districts and lodges. The Grand Secretary shall create a regionalized map using as a guide the current digital maps utilized by the Grand Lodge of Texas for communications to all districts and lodges. This map will be used to divide the Grand Lodge of Texas into several Masonic regions. Members of the committee will be assigned to support a region as needed. The regional service team members shall be, but not restricted to, members from the several Masonic regions, depending on the current and future availability of qualified committee representatives. This regional service team may utilize support as required from each of the following committees: Bylaws, Communications, Gift of Life, Masonic Mediation, Masonic Education and Service, Membership, Public Education, Texas Masonic History, Youth Activities, and Take Time to Read. So it's, it creates a
We're cutting the pie smaller.
As best as I can tell, it breaks, it groups, lodges are grouped into districts, and the Grand Lodge of Texas, and the districts are grouped into the Grand Lodge of Texas. This would say, hey, districts are grouped into regions, regions are grouped into the Grand Lodge. What do you guys think?
So if I was back home in Big Spring, Texas, talking to my family, the way that we would say this is, we're going to create some districts that we can put our districts in.
That was my question. Yeah. Billy, go ahead.
Yeah, the crazy thing about this is it says there's no formal regional support structure for districts to contact. Well,
Yeah.
isn't that the whole purpose of the DDGMs?
That was
And
my
then,
question.
You know, their service team
And
with
what
the
about
DCO
the-
and DEO.
What
Yeah.
about the district communications officer?
And the districts.
What job do they have?
Yeah, all the DEO, DSO, DIO, and DEO.
I'm just like,
ABCDEFG.
okay, no
and the
offense to
elemental
anybody
P.
who wrote this resolution, but I'm going to be the controversial one and say this is the most useless resolution I think I've ever read in my life.
My God, I thought I was just ignorant. I'm like, does this? Because this
makes
description
no sense
sounds just like
whatsoever.
the district.
If I were a district deputy grand master, I would be like, who is this person talking to? Because I've been here this
Man.
whole time and I've been doing this. Now, if this is because some district deputy grand master or some district communications officer isn't doing their job, adding more layers of bureaucracy and responsibility is not the way to solve that problem. If you want to solve that problem, get the DGGMs to do their job. That's their job. This resolution is their job.
I think that
Someone get Evie a glass of water, please.
Yeah.
As I take my Xanax.
No,
I like it.
that's perfect.
Evie is feeling good today, guys.
I have feelings, damn it.
Just for reference, does anybody know what the biggest geographic district is? Like, we have 3 districts, 64 A, B, and C, right?
The biggest geographic district.
Probably West
Geographic.
Texas.
Yeah.
So
It's
one DAGM could cover 300 square miles?
Oh, easy. From, if you're in El
But there's
Paso
probably only
or
like
one
5
south.
lodges in those 300 square
Right.
miles.
Yeah, but do you
Because
expect...
it's mostly coyotes.
Yeah, but do you expect the DAGM to visit all 5 lodges regularly?
Are you talking about the kind of coyotes with 4 legs or 2 legs?
hey.
That's a whole different...
Well, and here's my
But,
point.
but that's not a problem that needs another resolution. That's another problem. That's a kind of problem that needs DDGM's districts being broken down
Right,
into smaller.
right.
But then the problem becomes the qualifications of people, because my understanding of the reasons that some of these districts are so big has to do with there's not very many people that the grandmaster can tap for those responsibilities.
Yeah.
And so the same, like, they just have to
So-
draw these lines. in
The
order to
driving
make it
factor is going to be the
availability.
number of lodges in the district.
Right.
But
And kind of like what he's saying is, if we create it in the regions, are we going to have regional grandmasters to answer to the main grandmaster? How do we? I mean,
Or
how many?
regionals
so
answering
the-
to
Well, isn't that what a
districts,
DGGM is?
regionals.
District Deputy Grandmaster?
So
I mean-
the way I read it is that the committee of the permanent committee. So this would be a permanent committee. The regional service team would be the one. So I guess maybe each member. The way it says here is the regional service team members shall be, but not restricted to, members from the several Masonic regions, depending on the current and future availability of qualified community representatives.
Do we have a definition for what a Masonic region is?
No.
No, so that's what this proposes to do.
So we're
But-
setting up a region.
Well,
is
and
that,
so also
is
here's
that above districts?
it's
or
above districts.
Below
so
districts.
So let's
the
war
districts
game
would be grouped into regions, and then it says here that the grand secretary shall, the grand secretary
on the map.
shall create a regionalized map.
So let's war game this. I'm a district deputy grand master. And then the regional service team is telling me
Well, I'm a regional
I'm the
district
regional, and I'm going to say,
Permanent committee, regional service team.
Yeah.
but I'm the district deputized grand master,
Yeah.
and I can just imagine all kinds of fireworks coming out.
Appointed
Yeah, I can
by the
imagine.
sitting grandmaster.
I like-
You're not
I'm
permanent.
I am the in-person representative of the grand
There's
master.
definitely a problem there.
The funny one on here is whereas the office of the Grand Secretary is primarily focused on matters of statewide, national, administrative interest to the Grand
So
Legislature.
I feel like there's a problem with
sounds
that
like a
because
DDGM to me.
it assumes a lot. Like there's a lot.
there's a- and if
that
there's a
that
communi-
sentence has a ton baked into it, which I don't know
There's a
that I can
communication
agree
problem with the way that the system works, and we just pointed out that the biggest districts that deputy grandmasters have to go to have maybe like 5 lodges, but represent 350 square miles. A region is going to have to be bigger than that. So the regional grandmaster, let's say that's the title that's thrown out.
Oh, I don't know
regional
that that will be the.
Well,
let's
I'm
say
not- I'm
the-
just saying,
let's say the
hypothetically.
service team member.
That service team member is going to have an even bigger region. So how is that regional service member going to ensure communication is done effectively in a region that's bigger than the deputy grandmasters that we have now, and they're having problems with communication? If you're really looking to solve a communication problem, making the district smaller is the answer, not by adding more layers of bureaucracy.
Yeah, well, and I guess it would kind of, and if anything, that geographic issue would kind of cripple regional service team members, right? Because they would have to almost, at a certain point, when you're dealing with geographic expanses that large, you would have to deal with almost certainly 100% being restricted to electronic communication or phone conversation, and not a whole lot of in-person communication or anything like that.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
But if it is broken, let's find ways to actually fix it.
Well, how about we fix the system we have?
More problems.
Or how about we just fix the system we have in place, and then or amend the system we have in place rather than creating a whole new system. Okay, we already got a police department. We don't need a deputy department, and then we don't need a sheriff's department. All these three stacked on top of each other to do the same job.
Yeah.
To be fair,
Looking forward, we had like 5.
To be fair.
You have federal marshals, and you have state marshals too.
to be fair,
Right, but you see my point though.
And constables.
If we don't need all these people overlapping with
Yeah.
legal authority and stuff. So yeah,
I agree.
A lot of that comes down to if I'm in charge of a thing, whatever it is, and I'm going to appoint or deputize or delegate activities to people. My number one mission is to inspect what I expect from those people. And so if I am not inspecting that the communication that I've delegated to those people is happening, and verifying that it's happening effectively, and then holding accountable the people that I've put in position to do so, adding more people is not going to solve the problem.
It's going to make it even worse.
It's going to make it worse.
here.
So if you are in a job where you've been specifically handpicked to do a thing, the person who handpicked you is liable to make sure that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I know in a big organization it gets hard, and sometimes you have trouble picking people, and adding on the fact that going from Lubbock to El Paso feels like 10 billion miles instead of whatever it actually is.
Only 800.
It just plays more into it. But it all comes down to you just have to hold people accountable to what they've been told to do. And if you're not doing that, more people's not going to help.
Yep. Let's talk about resolution number 6. This should be a fun one. I'm going to go ahead and read the justification for it. I won't read out the actual changes made because that's easy to summarize. Resolution number 6. Whereas during the annual communication, an individual is consistently present in the Grand East to assist in procedural matters which occur during the communication. Whereas it is necessary for this person to assist in the coordination of activities pertaining to voting on resolutions, committee reports, and certain other activities. Whereas this accurate parliamentary procedure is critical to determining the proper employment of Masonic procedures for the annual Grand Lodge communication. Whereas this individual is often called upon to assist in the preparation of the podium book for the annual communication. Whereas the Masonic Jurisprudence Committee has previously suggested that the office of Grand Parliamentarian be added to the Grand Lodge's list of appointed officers. Whereas other recognized U.S. Grand jurisdictions currently include a variety of appointed Grand Officer designations, such as Parliamentarian, Sword Bearer, Historian, Web Mason, Grand Secretary Emeritus, Chancellor, Judge Advocate, Education Officer.
Everybody gets ribbon, is what you're telling me.
And Provost. Whereas the Grand Lodge of Texas and other grand jurisdictions have found it appropriate and necessary to include additional appointed Grand Officer designations and regalia from time to time, therefore be it resolved that the Constitution of the Grand Lodge of Texas be revised as follows. And then comes a bunch of copy from the Constitution adding the position of Right Worshipful Grand Parliamentarian. Go.
So what's he supposed to do?
Okay, let me give you a little history on this.
Oh, he's coming out right out of the gate, guys.
Right out of the gate. So
8 seconds,
these
guys.
are good buddies of mine that wrote this resolution. So, in 1989, okay, Leonard Harvey's the Grand Master. Harvey Byrd had retired after Grand Lodge in '88, so we have a new Grand Secretary, Jim Ward. Okay, so if you go to your library, take out the proceedings from 1989, there's listed hardly any discussion on the topics of resolutions. We have a new Grand Secretary. Harvey Byrd was Grand Secretary for 30-something years, so we have a new one.
Yeah.
There's hardly any discussion on resolutions in that proceedings in 1989. But in 1989, there was a resolution to create the musician, the orator, and a grand parliamentarian. The orator and the musician passed. When it came to the grand parliamentarian, purposes and policies recommend it be adopted. Jurisprudence committee recommended it not be adopted. So that's wrong in the title of this resolution. Jurisprudence recommended it not be adopted. P&P said yes, we recommend it. It failed. All the discussion that ensued at Grand Lodge is not in the proceedings. We just know that it failed. But here's my personal opinion. The grand parliamentarian at that time was Jack Hightower. He was doing it. I'm sorry. He was not the grand parliamentarian.
He was the parliamentarian.
He was the parliamentarian helping out.
Yeah.
Was Jack Hightower. Jack Hightower was a huge staple. He's from Memphis, Texas, God's country, Hall County. He was a former Texas state senator, Texas congressman, former U.S. congressman, and at the time he was sitting on the Supreme Court for Texas. So it failed, even with Jack Hightower being the parliamentarian.
Yeah.
Okay? So I was not there. There's no discussion listed in the proceedings, so I don't know how... Jack, I don't believe, was that kind of guy that said, hey, I want to be the grand parliamentarian. We need to create this position, because if he was, it would have passed. If the Grand Master runs the show, if he has questions on law, that's why he has a jurisprudence committee. They call balls and strikes. The parliamentarian, during the
he's governing
just
the
there,
process.
just saying, hey guys, get up there to the podium. Let's go.
And he'll rule.
Right.
He'll tell the grandmaster, hey, so and so's out of order.
2/3, whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
But we don't need a grand parliamentarian telling us what's legal and what's not legal. That's the jurisprudence committee, and let the Grand Master run the show.
I guess the only argument for this would be then we have a single figurehead to speak in behalf of what a whole committee would be doing, right?
Well, so
Again, I'm trying to play devil's advocate
not
just to say, is this what they're doing?
The jurisprudence doesn't rule. Jurisprudence is kind of like an ongoing. They deal with an ongoing process.
Oh, right.
So
They're
it's
like
all the
research
stuff
group.
during the year, and they will rule at the end of Grand Lodge sessions and stuff as to what was in order and out of order, and what's legally gets adopted and stuff.
Right.
But if there's a legal question, it goes to the jurisprudence
It goes
committee.
to the
They don't
jurisprudence,
call on the parliamentarian.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Anything.
if there's a question of parliamentary procedure, then that goes to the
So
parliamentarian.
the reason that resolution was submitted in 1989, it says, whereas there was such a case workload, of course they were having 50, 60 resolutions and recommendations. That's a huge case right then. But now this is probably one of the biggest ones in the last couple of years, because,
and it's like 24?
Yeah, I'm about to say, we got 20 something.
I mean, if we didn't need a grand parliamentarian with 250,000 Masons in Texas in the 1960s, why do we need one now?
Yeah.
For an organization that says that every guy is on the level, holy schmoly, we sure are about giving as many people a grand title as humanly possible. And maybe there is a reason for a grand parliamentarian. I don't have a dog in the hunt. I don't really care. But what I do care about is that there are already people that I don't think that there should be a grand officer for. Like there are people who have parking spaces that I don't think should have grand parking spaces.
And you are going to name none of them.
And I am not going to name a single one of them. But I do.
His name is John Smith, and he's a jerk. And I'm just kidding.
No, but it's not about the person inhabiting that role.
It's
about the
office,
principle
is
of having that as a jeweled officer that either gets elected or appointed. If the Grand Master needs a parliamentarian, he is absolutely within his power to appoint, hey, Joe Schmo, would you be my Grand Parliamentarian for my Masonic year in the East? Yeah. Great! Wonderful.
And
He
that's
doesn't
it.
need to get a jewel for
And
it.
that's it. Because, well, you know, if you think about it, we...
I'm sorry, I said grand. This is DP. That in 1989 is when we passed. The resolution was to create a grand organist and a grand photographer. I was wrong. I said orator. That's wrong. We passed the organist, which is now the grand musician, and the grand photographer in 1989.
Because the orator has existed for long.
That is correct. I was wrong. I'm speaking up. Believe it or not, DP said he was wrong for one time.
All right,
So,
y'all heard it
record
here,
show.
folks. This will not happen until Haley's comment passes by again.
And if you look into the proceedings book, page number 473 of 1989, you will see where the Jurisprudence Committee recommend that the Grand Parliamentarian be not approved.
Yeah. So the way that I kind of look at it is, we have a stenographer during Grand Lodge. We don't have a grand stenographer, right? That's just the stenographer is somebody who volunteers or is paid by, depending on the situation, and answers to the grand secretary. In the same way, the parliamentarian the parliamentarian during Grand Lodge is not a grand parliamentarian. He's just somebody who helps out and is answerable to the Grand Master, because the way that we have things set up in Texas is that ultimately the Grand Master himself, the Grand Master, is the guy who decides and who rules on parliamentary procedure.
Sure.
He just has the parliamentarian there to advise him. What would make a difference for me in this is if the parliamentarian was speaking in a role where he regularly went up to the microphone and said, "Hey, listen, that was out of order. That was not okay. You know, we have to revisit that." Then that would maybe make sense, because that is somebody who is a face of the Grand East in a sense. That's maybe somebody you do want to give a collar and jewel to, but as it stands, he talks to the Grand Master, and the Grand Master is the one that says, "Hey, no, that was out of order. Sit down." You know.
How long have we been? How long has Texas been? 180 something years.
Something like that. Yeah.
And we've done without it. Do we need one now?
Probably not. Well, and what I would say is,
Didn't you just say if it ain't broke, don't fix?
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and what I would say is, if we so desired to have somebody who was a parliamentarian, who was a grand officer, we actually do already have a person.
Marshal.
Yeah, the Grand Marshal.
Grand Marshal. That's what I've been waiting to say. I thought
same
this
here.
was the Marshal's job.
But it did 3 times already.
One of the things that the Grand Marshal does fulfill a little bit of a different purpose, within the Grand Lodge of Texas. But historically within Masonic tradition, the Marshal is basically the only person who at any time, for any reason, can interrupt the worshipful master when he's speaking. Because usually the Marshal of a lodge is a past master who's experienced in parliamentary procedure, and if the worshipful master is out of order, he'll stand up and tell him, "Worshipful master, you're out of order." Done, right? So if we wanted a grand parliamentarian, we just have to say, "Hey, listen, Grand Marshal, this is also under the duties of your job. Have at it."
It's literally in the resolution, it's literally under the Grand Marshal.
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe a pro tem Grand Marshal?
I don't know. So, but
From the new guy's perspective, outside looking in, it just looks like we want to hand out lots of flair. That's what it sounds like.
yeah.
We need 16 pieces of flair, not 15.
Surprisingly, though, yes, it's a jewel,
I like
but
that.
it's not like, if they walk in the room, you don't realize, oh, that's the Grand Order, that's the Grand Marshal. I do, because I've met him, but generally you're not.
Yeah.
It's not like the Grand Master, where everybody knows who he is.
And I do not like where somebody says, "Well, other jurisdictions have it." Well, who cares? This is Texas.
Yeah, we're better.
There's other
We're
jurisdictions.
better, and we know the right way of
Yeah.
doing things.
Now, I
The
will say
Grand
this,
Web Host. Well, I mean, what are we?
Web, sir,
What is
you
it?
are incorrect. It says Web Mason.
Web Mason, the Grand.
so
Please rise for the new Grand Web Mason.
now, to be fair though,
What's his apron? Does it have a keyboard and a
So-
monitor on it?
I
On
kind
his
of like
apron?
that. That's kind of no, but it has to be one of the old school box monitors.
Oh yeah. Like an IBM?
in 3
Yeah.
dimensions.
No, that's
Right.
floppy disk.
It has to be an IBM or a
3.5.
floppy disk.
Oh, an
Oh,
8-inch, an 8-inch floppy.
Right.
Yeah. I was gonna go with
Just
the
getting
5.
out of control. I mean,
But no, so you know, you and I were talking about it this morning, and one of the things that I said is, yes, this is Texas, and we do things our own way. But I'm also a big fan of the philosophy of, if you like it, steal it. You know, in the sense that if you see something that another jurisdiction is doing, and you go, hey, I like that. You know, hey, if it works for other people, I'm not opposed
If
to
it's
saying,
valuable.
hey, we need it if it's valuable.
If it's
What
needed.
what value does a grand parliamentarian
Bing
offer?
bong. There we go. That's it, right? Like,
It already exists. Why do we need to give
you
a
know,
jewel to it?
Right, exactly, and that's where we come in. If it has value, then we steal it. But the question is, does it have value? Maybe not. You know, we don't know. Let's breeze through resolution number 7 here, or not breeze through, but let's handle this so that we can get to resolution number 9, which is Billy's. Let's talk about resolution number 7. This is something I do have some feelings on as well. Resolution number 7 fully bans publishing images of entered apprentices and fellow crafts. So this would modify Article 405A. Publication of names prohibited. The names, and add here, and images of petitioners, candidates, entered apprentice masons, and fellow craft masons shall not be published. Strike in a newsletter, and add, whether in a digital, electronic, video, photographic, or written format, or on any social media site or any other platform, strike news media, and add public or private. So it basically says, previously we have said you can't publish the names of EAs and fellow crafts in newsletters or news media, public or private. Now this would say, and images in any digital, written, whatever. You just cannot publish that, period. Public or private. So how do you guys feel about it?
I'm in.
I'm out.
I mean, you know, I think this is like I think the roots of this is kind of archaic. You know, you don't publish any of our initiates and prospects and all that other stuff. I get that. You know, I totally understand it. I think what they're doing at this point is modernizing this for Facebook purposes. Because I'm pretty sure I've seen, you know, EA pictures on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, the big crowd after, hey, we just got our new initiate, and you've got the guy front and center wearing his EA apron, and it's like, cool. Yeah, pretty sure. I think that's what they're doing on this one. Is just, you know, some housekeeping.
So somebody walk me through why it's even necessary to restrict publication, even as it stands right now, where it's in written formats only. It seems like are the only ones that are currently prohibited, which is kind of the workaround that they're trying to remedy here.
Yeah.
Tell me why. Somebody explain to me why this is an issue to begin with.
So my first concern for being published would be that as a person, my affiliation with this fraternity is a choice, and that choice may also be private.
Okay, so
Because
but
it
shouldn't
could affect my workplace, my place of worship.
Absolutely, and that I completely agree. However, should that not also include Master Masons then?
Yeah.
I think it should. Yeah, absolutely.
DP, do you remember what the original justification was for banning publishing any
That
names?
was before my time. What number of law is that? 405A?
405A. And
Let me look at my hardbound library.
Yeah. So
Constitution here.
the reason why I'm opposed to this resolution, you know, and I know that I haven't actually stated my actual opposed support. I don't think I've actually said whether or not I oppose or support something explicitly yet. I'm opposed to this, and it's because not only do I oppose tightening this, but I'm also opposed to the original article in general.
Adopted, Article 405 Alpha was adopted in 1990.
1990. And the story that I had heard, which I can't verify, was that basically this was to prevent guys from one lodge traveling to another lodge to protest the advancement of entered apprentices and fellow crafts that they didn't like. That doesn't sound right, but it's the only reason that I've heard.
I think
you know,
I don't agree
but
with that. I think if somebody knew,
I'm
somebody's
opposed
going through.
to this on the basis that an entered apprentice or a fellow craft, in terms of Masonic learning and stuff, yes, very different from a Master Mason. But as a brother, they're not different from Master Masons inherently. And
well, not at least in the public eye. I mean, if you're an EA,
you're a Mason.
You're a Mason. So,
period.
What is the difference between an EA, a fellow craft, and a Master Mason? If the
And the
concern is
restriction
privacy, then this needs to be amended to include Master Masons as well.
Yeah.
If that issue, and that's the only way that I would be in support of this resolution. I would not. I am not in the support of the original, nor am I in support of this tightening of it. I think I don't think that there's a point to it.
Yeah, and touching on the private choice, right? I'm going to try and be vague here for, InfoSec reasons, basically. But I know a brother who has concerns about his identity as a Mason being exposed to clients, right? Mm-hmm. Does not want that to get out. He is not interested in having that being known as something that he is a part of. Even though he is very proud to be a Mason, he has employment-related information security concerns. Let's just say that. He also doesn't have a Facebook, and he also does not pose for pictures with the lodge. That's how he gets around that, because he says, okay, everybody's posing for a group photo, let me go ahead and take the photo. And that way he's never in the photo, his name is never published on anything, he actually is pretty clear with other brothers involved at events that he goes to. Hey, listen, FYI, I have a client confidentiality thing going on. I don't want anybody to know that I'm a Mason outside of Masonry. Done. And I feel like that's totally fair. So he does make the choice to voluntarily associate with us, but he also makes some pretty serious efforts to making that stay private. And I feel like that's fair. That should be a personal choice. If your entered apprentice doesn't feel comfortable with being visible as an entered apprentice, then, he has every right, and you should encourage him to exercise the right to not be present in a photo and to not have his name publicated. But as is, this kind of lands us in this thing where we can't even celebrate. How cool would it be to say, like, hey, listen, guys, like, let's say a very traditional lodge newsletter, something printed out and mailed to the members' houses. Hey, everybody congratulate so-and-so. Look, here's a big picture of our new entered apprentice. Isn't that great? That's perfectly innocuous, and unless there's a real security concern that the guy has expressed to you guys, there's no reason why you should feel uncomfortable doing that. There's also the sidebar here that the way that this resolution is phrased, and I'll read this without any of the original language, I'll read this as it would be if amended. The names and images of petitioners, candidates, entered apprentice Masons, and fellow craft Masons shall not be published, whether in digital, electronic, video, photographic, or written format, on any social media site or any platform, public or private. The way I interpret that, public or private, congrats, you can't write down who your entered apprentices are in your lodge minutes.
That's true.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's
you can't.
My point about this is that
you can't
this
even have a
resolution-
logbook.
We could
This
just talk about their
resolution-
names on our Slack feed, on our internal Slack feed. We
Yeah,
couldn't do that.
if your lodge has a private text message chat, you can't use entered apprentices' names. If you
Or
guys have
fellow crafts.
if you guys have a guest book where somebody signs in,
Anything that gets published in the minutes.
yeah, because
Can't
that is a printed private platform.
Yeah.
Your registrar is a printed private platform.
Well, and here's the thing that's the giveaway to me. This isn't about privacy.
No.
This is
Because whatever this resolution is about, it is not about privacy.
Yeah.
Because if it were about privacy, it would not have to include the phrase any other platform, public or private. Because if it's a private platform, then it's inherently
It's private.
private.
Yeah.
that tells me that this resolution is about something else besides privacy.
Yeah, this
and
is
if
about
it
control.
was about privacy, it would be about master masons as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what the purpose of this is, and if there's not a purpose to it, it doesn't need to be a resolution.
Yeah.
I revoked my initial.
Yeah, I think I'll tell you
I like the
what my
idea.
gut
If
reaction
if
was.
you want to make it private, if it wants to be about privacy, include the words master mason in it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
now you got me.
Yeah, because then it applies to everybody.
I think-
It's privacy for everyone, because as an entered apprentice, I need no more privacy than a master mason does,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
But I don't think you should ever include private groups. Like if we have our own
Right.
internal things.
Billy?
So, yeah, so I'm thinking about, I'm taking this from a completely different direction, right? So I go through, as part of my job at the Library Museum, I go through the returns, the annual returns for lodges, going back to the very formation of, Freemasonry in Texas. Originally, entered apprentices and fellow crafts were not considered members until they became master masons. So when you look at the old returns, you'll see when they list members, an EA and a fellow craft is not listed. Now they're in a separate section where they say who they currently have going through the pipeline, but they were not considered members of the lodge. And so my thought is that this comes from that, right? Because why would you celebrate, we had someone come, through? Well, they're not a member yet. So as an EA, congratulations, you're on your way. As a fellow craft, you've advanced. But you're not really a member of that lodge at least in the old way of thinking until you became a master mason. So, I have to respectfully disagree. There was a difference. Not only that, but when you look at it, right, so you have an EA. Every lodge should celebrate that, absolutely. But if you publish that everywhere, what happens if that person doesn't advance, right? What happens if they peter out? What happens if they fail to advance for cost? Now you have kind of an uncomfortable situation there. So, in a way, I'm kind of for this. Now, the question of what exactly is meant by public or private, that is a different issue. I take it as, you can say your Facebook feed is private. So does it extend to the minutes at a lodge? I don't think so. But that should be clarified, right? Because that's a future point of contention should this pass. But when it comes to the inclusion of these entered apprentices and fellow crafts as members, well, part of me still says that really until you've completed the process, you're not a member of the lodge.
Well, and
And
that's
it
how
wasn't
it is.
until
Yeah.
recently, that EAs and fellow crafts were even entitled to Masonic burial.
Well, and that very well might be a great reason to keep this resolution as it is. However, I think that it's also just as relevant to say if a master mason goes out and commits a felony or gets kicked out of the fraternity, you have the same problems with suddenly this inconvenient master mason who is now a master mason on television, their mugshots on TV as part of your lodge, and it's all over your Facebook feed that they are a master mason. That's the same problem as if one of the fellow crafts or entered apprentices doesn't advance or fails to advance for cause. The issue that seems to be raised by those concerns, which I absolutely think are relevant, they apply to master masons too. So in terms of like marketing and social media and image of the Masonic brand, all of those things are just as relevant to master masons too. So I still think that if this resolution is to pass in its current form, it should include master masons as part of it.
Yeah. Well,
But the difference there is how many EAs and fellow crafts are run through the process, without adequate investigation, right? How many guys come in and it's like, hey, great, here's your petition. It's already, they don't really have to work to get signatures for it, and they're already entered into the pipeline. Theoretically, your master mason has at least
That's
been
only
there a couple of
148, Billy.
Hey, you take that
no,
back?
I would
Especially last year at 148.
I would say that any problems related to letting in entered apprentices and fellow crafts that shouldn't be there extend through that process to the Master Masons that they become. So ultimately,
That was 07.
the distinction between entered apprentices, fellow crafts, and Master Masons in that aspect is not super big, because if they do progress, they're still going to have the same issues that they had once they're Master Masons. But let's go ahead and tackle resolution number 9, and we're going to unfairly lump in resolution number 23 because it is very similar. Billy, do you want to, as the author of resolution number 9, would you like to walk us through resolution number 9, what it is and what it does, and then we can jam resolution 23 in there just because?
Sure. So the purpose of resolution number 9 is to create a lodge historian in the constituent lodges. So I want to be clear, this is not proposing that we create a grand historian. To create a historian officer position within constituent lodges, who would then be the person who is responsible of compiling the history of the lodge, as well as acting as the conservator for the historical items and information, regalia, pictures, what have you, of that lodge. That is truly the purpose of resolution number 9. The subsequent resolution, that would have to be taken separately as to what the purpose is behind that. But that is truly the full intent of resolution number 9, is just to have an officer who's designated as an optional officer. I want to point this out. Not one that's required to be assigned. They're just like the musician. Or the marshal, in that lodges can opt to take advantage of this position or not. But truly, it's an attempt to create an office that will be the preserver of the lodge history.
Question, Billy. I'm going to play devil's advocate here with you.
Sure.
So why do we need to create a lodge historian? For what purpose? We haven't had one in 180-something years in Texas Masonry. Why do we feel the need to create another potential position for somebody?
So some lodges already have unofficial lodge historian.
No, I'm talking about that's part of a lodge membership. Hey, you have a worshipful master, senior ward, junior warden. Tyler, we don't have a lodge official historian per se as an officer of the lodge, and that's what this is creating, correct?
As opposed to like a
Correct.
chairman.
Correct, yeah. So why are we creating a potential another office? What's the purpose?
Just to encourage the preservation of the lodge history.
Okay.
Like I said, it's an option. It's not a requirement.
Couldn't that just be done through a committee?
So, there's nothing preventing that today, right? Any
Exactly.
lodge any worshipful master can assign an ad hoc committee charged with history and preservation. There's no reason not to do it today.
Correct.
So some lodges can continue to do that if they want to. Some lodges, if this resolution gets adopted, can choose to have, the responsibility for that reside in a chosen person. This really kind of gives the opportunity and flexibility for lodges to pick how they want to get this done.
Maybe I'm just looking at it wrong. I see it as another way, creating another office for another person. And when do we finally say, hey, we can't have 20 guys in here all being officers? We got to have other people doing things besides everybody being an officer. I get the aspect of preserving the history. Look at Phoenix Lodge. We have several brothers that have done the history of it. Dexter Salmons, who's a past master of TLR, past grand chaplain for Leonard Harvey in 1989, wrote a book.
I own a copy of that.
On Phoenix Lodge. And he was never the lodge historian. I just don't see, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Yeah.
It's just another way to encourage lodges to take a look at their history, right? To actually start doing research. Because, as a member of the Texas Lodge of Research, I'm working at the library and museum, I get a lot of people who ask me, how do you do this? There's a lot of people that seem to feel that they need to be given permission to do something like that.
I'm ready for the discussion at Grand Lodge.
It'll be interesting.
What do y'all think? You're members of 148.
Well, I think here's my take on this, and this is the reason that I haven't been saying anything. Because I'm a member of 148 and a member of 148 is sponsoring this, I have an inherent bias. So whatever I say is biased, and so I'm of the same opinion that while I'm interested in the debate that's going to happen on the subject. Yeah. Although I will also say my bias now out there. I have a different set of feelings about this position than I do about a grand position.
Yeah,
I think in a lodge, in an appointed capacity, in a non-required capacity, it's a way of recognizing something, and I do think it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's something that kind of goes with the philosophy of if you say something is a big deal and you treat it like a big deal, it eventually does become a big deal, right? And I feel like, obviously, I have to make the same admission. I have a strong bias on this resolution.
Sure,
because
I get it. I'm the odd guy out. I get it.
Yeah, well, and that's why you're here. But yeah, the way I look at it is, we might be able to make lodge history a bigger deal if we say, hey, this is important enough that it has an officer attached to it.
And let's also kind of, I think, point out the reason that 148 even has a podcast is because somebody thought it was important enough to start doing a podcast and start putting opinions out there into the world. And that's how this podcast has grown from like 2 or 3 people to an entire room full of people.
A conference room of people.
A little bit.
And so history could use that sort of focus as well, I think.
Yeah.
I think
So a little different in creating a podcast to creating a position in a lodge.
Speaking as secretary,
Absolutely
though,
true.
of 148, I could see where a historian would be beneficial to a secretary. So maybe not historic documents, but research on members.
Yeah.
That'd be super
Right.
useful, yeah.
Maybe a secretary pro tem type position.
So you're saying
I do
that
think it's important to have someone like document the history of your lodge or keep catalog of the history of your lodge.
Well, like our minutes.
But I see
Minutes back
DB's
to
point is
1850.
exactly. Our lodge is 160 something years old.
The answer to the question, do we need a lodge historian? I would say the answer to that, strictly put that way, is probably no. But why not?
But now the question becomes, do we want one?
Yes, and I think this is a question of needs versus wants. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, hey, we want to create this.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
And giving lodges and maybe that's if I were in the amending world, if I were on DP side of this, I would say, why don't we have the amendment in there and have it an optional thing that lodges can either have it or not, and choose it or not, and maybe it's written in there.
It's in there
like
that
that
way.
Yeah.
And
that's I think
And that's the difference between creating a grand muckety muck is that that's not optional, and that creates bureaucracy. This doesn't create any roadblocks for anybody. It's left up to the lodges, which is where the option should be. With the lodge.
Power to the lodge.
I'm with you, Sean. I like small government.
And the lodge should get to choose, and the Grand Lodge should just be able to say, yes, you're allowed to do that.
Here's
When
where
does it
I'm going to
stop?
say that
I think that it stops whenever the market makes it stop. When a lodge gets silly and they've got 700 billion officers in their lodge and they are just ridiculous, they'll fail.
Right.
when it's all chiefs and no Indians.
Well, and
They will fail and they will go away.
That's the way this is going because
Laissez-faire.
next year somebody could create. Hey guys, it's okay if we create all these
I don't like those
positions.
French words.
It's okay if we create all these positions because it's your choice if you want to or not. It doesn't matter.
And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, for example, let's say a lodge, let's say we create the legal avenue to have the office of almoner, which exists, within Masonry, not within the Grand Lodge of Texas, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say, we say, hey, the Lodge Almoner, he's in charge of charity, he's in charge of taking care of brothers who are down on their luck. optional office, and let's say a lodge has, let's say resolution 9 and 23 pass, and then this fictional article number 99 gets added, creating an almoner. Let's say a lodge has every Masonic officer, including the stewards and the master of ceremony, the musician and the marshal, and and the historian and the orator, and let's say like the almoner. Hey, if they can, if the lodge is healthy enough to withstand an officer corps of like 20 guys or whatever, and they have enough guys to make it work, then
everybody gets a ribbon.
Well,
that's
sure.
what the way I see it. Everybody.
But we shouldn't look at officer positions as ribbons, and they shouldn't be considered ribbons.
Where do
you're there to serve. You're not there to. You're not there to be.
You're there to work.
So my opinion,
everybody gets a hard hat.
Everybody
gets a hard hat as well.
It's not that way in every lodge. Believe me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
We didn't originally have a grand musician.
1989. That's correct.
And we didn't originally have a grand photographer.
1989. That is correct.
So
and that's why we still don't have a
doesn't have a photographer.
Well, so that's kind of what I'm getting at.
But I'm saying, how many do we open this up to? Is there a set limit? It's kind of like recognized by who can meet in a lodge room.
The Grand Lodge and the Constituent Lodge is a different thing. The Grand Lodge is a different thing. That's apples and oranges. Constituent lodges should be allowed to do what they need to do up to their discretion.
Yeah.
Pass or fail, survive, sink or swim, survive or not, whatever that lodge wants to do. If they want to jewel the entire lodge, let them.
Yeah. And if that's their downfall, well, congrats, guys.
But it's not the Grand Lodge. The Grand Lodge is a different thing. You can't compare the two things. They're not the same.
I guess this is the Masonic version of the invisible hand of the free market.
So what's the difference between his and the other resolution?
The other resolution doesn't have the clarifying verbiage.
What number is it?
23. Billy's resolution clarifies that the lodge historian does not necessarily have to be a member of the lodge, similarly to how the Tyler works. And in the same way that the Tyler can be a Tyler for, he can be elected Tyler of more than 2 lodges, a lodge historian can be done the same way. The other resolution adds the additional office of orator, but doesn't have any of that clarifying language. I think there is value in the clarifying language.
So it's creating a orator?
Orator, yeah, at the lodge level. But let's go ahead and move on to the next resolution. So let's talk about resolution number 10. This is the summary of the resolution. It fully bans live streams of Grand Lodge communication, and the text that they are proposing here is a new paragraph to Article 2 of Chapter 2, Title 1. So Chapter 2, Title 1, Communications, Article 2, Annual Communication. No change in the first 3 paragraphs. Here's the addition. When the Grand Lodge is called to labor, no audio or visual representation of such proceeding shall be permitted either by transmission, live streaming, or other means of communication. These provisions shall not apply to transmissions within the Grand Lodge Memorial Temple.
I think you could probably do this resolution to go hand in hand with the Grand Master's recommendation, because it has to do with either or. Either the Grand Master's recommendation says, yes, we can broadcast it without the esoteric opening and closing and other things like that. This is resolution number 10 says you can't do any of it.
That was my question is, like, what's the difference? Okay, so, because I know, last year they did live stream it for COVID reasons.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that way voting members could be, remote, and I get it. But this is a tiled meeting. We have to show our little card in our pocket showing that we've been checked and vouched for and everything. Yeah. So I just kind of was wondering, so is this just now that COVID's over, we're done. We're no more live streaming. That kind of what, huh?
It's over?
Well, okay, you know what I mean.
Any thoughts on this, guys?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, I don't like the whereas the current state technology provides no means by which. I mean, the technology's there. It's just enacting it and paying for it.
Yeah. Let's see here. No means by which to ensure that others who are not authorized to attend. might be able to witness such proceedings broadcast. Therefore,
Are you
I think
gonna
they're referring to like somebody literally standing in the room with you.
Are you going to ban every cell phone in the building during a meeting? Because that's the only way you're going to prevent it 100% not happening.
Yeah, you would, because cell phones do listen to you. Like if you're talking about, let's say you're talking about vacationing to the to the Caribbean, right? And you're talking about that cruise that you're going to take to the Caribbean, and how you're going to enjoy a royal cruise versus a Viking cruise or whatever. You're going to start seeing advertisements on your phone when you browse the internet, when you use Facebook, anything else, because your phone, not your phone inherently, but there are apps on your phone that listen in passively if you have granted them the default permissions of those apps, which is going to have that in there. So you would have to ban cell phones from being in Grand Lodge communication. What's up?
Grandmaster recommendation that we were just discussing. Therefore, be it resolved. He adds, subject to approval of the Grandmaster and the trustees of the Grand Lodge of Texas, the Committee on Communications shall use such electronic and digital means as to be determined to disseminate to the members of the Grand Lodge of Texas the proceedings of the Grand Annual Communications. The proceedings, annual communication, the Committee of Communities shall give utmost consideration to the protection from the disclosure ritual signs. That's talking about the broadcasting.
This is talking about the broadcast? Okay,
That's what I'm telling you.
It's not really written that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they're talking about the actual
broadcast.
They're talking about the proceedings as the live event.
You are correct,
not
sir.
the
Right.
proceedings as the text.
So correct me if I'm
yes.
wrong, but I think they're after trying to protect the
sign.
private proceedings
But-
of our ceremonies
so what's
from public view.
The big difference on the Grandmaster's recommendation from last year, the recommendation says we can broadcast it, but no member of the Grand Lodge of Texas may be heard on any manner properly brought before this Grand Lodge, or any such member shall vote or cast a ballot on any such matter that is not present in person. So you can watch it. You've registered online. You
Yeah.
paid your fee. You can sit there and watch it. You're at home. You have COVID, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be.
Yeah.
But you cannot
can't vote.
vote,
You can't vote.
unlike last year.
And
Right.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. What I do, the issue though is resolution number 10 completely bans
All of it.
all of it.
Right.
The question, or actually, Evve, did you have some?
Yes, on both of these resolutions. The challenge that I have is, yes, we all know that this pandemic that we are in has perhaps been understood in a way that prevents people from getting together, that we maybe might agree. I'm trying to choose my words very carefully here, people, so just work with me here. Perhaps
Get to the point, dang it.
Perhaps there's been a little bit of an exaggeration on how serious the risk to people gathering really is. And last year was no doubt. I think that there are a lot of people that would agree with that.
Right.
Regardless of what your political opinions are or your views on the subject,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who would say that it's not as risky to get together as some people might say.
Yeah.
And this last year's annual communication, which allowed voting to happen remotely and to be viewed remotely through a live stream, was under that auspice of perhaps necessary.
Yeah.
Getting to my point, what happens when either of these resolutions are passed and suddenly there is a very serious style pandemic that prevents us from meeting, that is much more of a serious concern than our current pandemic has left us with?
Yeah.
We are suddenly with our hands tied by these resolutions.
Ebola versus
By law.
By
law.
Masonic law. And it disallows the Grandmaster the flexibility to exercise his judgment in either restricting or allowing the business to be conducted remotely by voting members in a serious situation that requires them to do so. Because the business, just because we're in a pandemic, like a huge pandemic that's really killing people, if we get together, suddenly we still have business that needs to get done. And if in either of these resolutions need to conduct a vote where people are not in person, suddenly we can't do that.
Oh, okay.
And now we've got a problem.
I've got a question. So, our fraternity's been around for a very, very long time. If we miss 1 year of voting, is our fraternity just gonna out of existence? If we miss 1 year of voting? I think not.
Probably.
So if we were to have, let's just say, God forbid, as what Evie has hypothesized here, the pandemic of pandemics,
Super Ebola.
super AIDS that's come along, or whatever it is.
Super COVID.
Yeah, super COVID. Thank you. That's even better. So we get super COVID, let's say in whatever year. If we have to suspend voting entirely because we can't meet in public, is that really a bad thing?
It's not 1 year.
What if it's
Let's say it's 5 years.
What if it's 10?
Well, okay, but let's say it's 5 years or so. But,
The only thing is that I think that the Grandmaster should have the flexibility to do this. And I'm the one sitting next to
blood.
DP.
He's
coughing up blood.
DP
So,
yeah,
I
gives
have-
all Ebola here.
I have DP of
it's a very faux pas to cough right now, sir.
We fortunately we have some examples to look at with our brother states in the union that really shut down hard for COVID. Like Texas, we went through our thing and we went through our shutdown, but it was
And then we came out.
yeah,
Yeah,
It was
we
like
came
10
out.
months.
Yeah.
But we have other states that were preventing any sort of Masonic communication of their members and some of them, South Carolina, and some of the more public issues. And I think that any time that we're imposing restrictions as resolutions,
It gets
we
dangerous.
have to be very, very careful.
The law of unintended consequences is on my mind here.
And even then, unintended consequences as well. There's always people that are going to be willing to abuse something too. Because if the infrastructure for a law exists, I guarantee you, there's people that are going to be looking at that, going, "How can I use this to my advantage?" Especially if it means somebody else has to eat it.
The McLennan County Health Department power to shut down masonry in Texas, 100%.
Yeah.
Could do that
Thank
with
you.
this passed.
Yeah, the governor
You can't
could
meet
say,
at Grand Lodge. Sorry, guys, it's in my county. You can't meet.
couldn't
Yeah,
have more
that's
than
true.
200 people in a building. Remember that whole, 100 people, whatever.
But then
it was.
can't you also,
So-
have, okay, well, we can't meet in this one building. Maybe we can have representatives of each group and, create a
So-
Congress or
This is
something.
I have
what I
a-
would- this is what I would
So
propose.
I have a question here.
We can
too.
tile our individual lodges.
So
If it came down to that, could we not meet and vote in our lodges
Yeah.
via our room?
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
tiled.
So
Yeah.
we're live streaming
Hey,
to each
so,
lodge.
or,
each lodge is
or
not-
better yet,
Yeah.
let's
Basically,
just say,
baseball
for
can do that.
example,
We can do
But
that.
then,
Fort Worth Lodge, we vote yes, no, no, yes, 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 no, yes, no on all these resolutions, mail it to Grand Lodge, and then boom, there you go. You have your
I don't think there's anything preventing like a mail-in type thing, but
right.
I have a question here specifically to resolution number 10. Obviously, the Grandmaster's recommendation number five or four has its own issues with shutting down voting, but the rationale behind resolution number 10, whereas only Master Masons in good standing may be present when so called, and so on and so forth. And then there's something here. So I'll read it again here. When the Grand Lodge is called to labor, no audio or visual representation of such proceeding shall be permitted either by transmission, live streaming, or other means of communication. These provisions shall not apply to transmissions within the Grand Lodge Memorial Temple. I have a question for the general manager of the Grand Lodge Library and Museum, who is on this, who is with us remotely. Billy, is there anything preventing wives and other non-Masons from being inside the Grand Lodge Memorial Temple and not within the, just outside in the hallway where they might see a transmission? Is there anything preventing them from being in the building where they could see a transmission?
Nothing preventing them from being in the building. No, the only thing that prevents them from, you see it all the time. Every Grand Lodge session, there's wives and and other family members that are outside while Grand Lodge is in session. And the Tyler alcoves that are there are really the only barrier between the two.
Yep, there we go. And ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here from the general manager of the Grand Lodge Library and Museum. This is my big problem. This is one of my big problems with this. What is so, if the wives that are there and the other non-Masons that are there aren't prohibited from seeing it in a transmission within the Grand Lodge Memorial Temple, let's say it's like a CCTV broadcast inside the building, what's so secret about the proceedings that they can't be viewed outside of the Grand Lodge Memorial Temple when there are non-Masons, there are profane individuals within the building that can see it if it's on CCTV.
Exactly.
That is an interesting choice. I think that's more of an oversight on the people who drafted this.
Yeah, I think that's a
resolution.
verbiage issue.
I think it's a verbiage
Semantics.
issue. However, as we pointed out, semantics matter when we're talking about resolutions and law. And so now all of a sudden, if we're going to say that it can be transmitted anywhere inside the Masonic temple, not just within the lodge room, now we're getting into an area where
Well, and that's what I'm getting at.
You could have TVs downstairs. And,
yes,
in the
and voting members could be there.
In the ladies' room.
Or maybe they should like add the verbiage like only to where secure locations where only authorized people are allowed to view this.
This resolution was written to prohibit any of the live streaming going out to people sitting at home.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
meat and potatoes to the resolution. The recommendation is saying, hey, this resolution says nothing, no live streaming at home.
Yeah.
The recommendation says you can live stream it, but you can't vote and you cannot speak on a resolution.
Yeah.
But you can watch it.
Yeah. And I think the
And they
big thing
can't show
there.
the signs.
That's correct.
Yeah.
None of the ritualistic opening and closing.
Right.
Plus, I mean, everything is written in a book.
Yeah, it's the proceedings. Yeah, the written copies of the proceedings.
Word for word.
Yeah.
Basically.
So, because at that point I have to say, listen, like anybody can buy a copy of the proceedings of any year. Yeah. You know, there's no functional difference. They, depending on the transcription, you can even see where most of the proceedings I've given, they even include stuff where somebody forgets their name, to give their name or whatever, and somebody calls them out on it. It's hey, you have to introduce yourself. All of that, even the finest detail of people forgetting parliamentary procedure, people misspeaking, people cracking jokes during things, all of that's preserved in the written copies of the proceedings.
That's correct.
So there's not a functional difference to saying, oh, you can't live stream. Well,
Do you want people to watch it, be able to watch it at home that cannot attend, or do you not?
and that's it.
It's it. You pick which one you want.
As long as written copies of the proceedings exist, I don't think we can justify this resolution. We would have to get rid of the written copies of the proceedings.
Not with a secrecy justification.
Yeah, not with the secrecy justification, and that's what this is going for, right? That's I can understand not wanting people to vote at home, but the easy way to do that is say, hey, we're broadcasting Grand Lodge, and then just not provide remote voting capability.
They won't have
You
it
just
set
don't
up.
have to,
Sure.
because there's nothing in our laws prohibiting us from doing
And it's at the discretion. The recommendation is at the discretion of the current Grand Master.
Which is what it should be.
Right. So if I know how 148 likes to, hey, it's up to whatever you want to do. And that's the good thing about this recommendation is that it says, hey, it's at the discretion of that Grand Master, whoever it may be that year, says, yes, we can broadcast it, or no. It's it's his call, the way that I read that recommendation. But
I just don't like the idea that they're taking this out of the hands of the Grand Master. I think his discretion, his wise judgment should prevail in this. It should, and probably with the consultation of the communications committee, because I think all of those people are going to be involved in this. So it's not like he's just arbitrarily making this decision. We would hope. I mean, obviously,
one would hope.
One would hope that the Grand Master is not making these decisions in a vacuum, and that he's going to have wise counsel surrounding him to make sure that he makes the wisest possible decision.
Sure.
But these resolutions strip him of that. Yeah. So I think that I don't like the idea of stripping people of their.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and tackle resolution number 11. So resolution number 11, the long and short of it is that it takes Grandmaster's decision 1963 number 2, banning photography into the lodge room, and turns it into a proper article of its own, allowing exceptions for members of the Grand Photography Committee, quote, a knowledgeable person designated by the Grand Master, and any Master Mason during the presentation of the Holy Book of the Candidate's Faith and apron during the Master Mason's degree. So basically, there is already a prohibition on taking photos inside of a lodge room that is law, because it was a Grand Master's decision that was preserved. This codifies it as a separate article. And this basically allows people who are, either Grand Photography Committee members or, I guess, who have a dispensation from the Grand Master to take photos during.
Is this saying
child
that
work.
currently, right now, if the Grand Lodge is called a session, Grand Photographer is in violation of Grand Master's decision number 2? The question was asked: is it permissible to take pictures inside a room when
The lodge.
when it doesn't say?
The copies of the resolutions all in many places are missing the word lodge. So if you see something that's
Okay.
like the blank, it's the lodge.
Gotcha.
When the lodge is at labor.
I think that needs to be corrected, by the way.
I need to
So-
read this article.
So I think I don't know that I would read it at that, because the Grand Lodge functions. The Grand Lodge is not a lodge; it is the Grand Lodge. So like structurally, organizationally, it's a different entity.
But it's tiled. That's
It is
goes
tiled,
back to the other
right?
resolution.
I think this is not a bad resolution for sure, because this would allow for lodges, as our law stands currently, it seems to be a strong, strict blanket ban, period, which is something that was qualified by Most Worshipful, or clarified by Most Worshipful Curry earlier, because we're not allowed to take photos inside any Masonic body while at labor this year per his decision. But it seems like there's already a decision on the books, which is therefore codified law, that there seems to be a blanket ban.
But a Grand Master's decision can be overturned by another Grand Master. This is making it a law.
Yes.
That's the bigger difference.
But it specifies at labor, right?
When it specifies at labor, yeah. So you could call to refreshment and do, say a 50-year presentation, and then present, take photos of the 50-year presentation.
Yeah, I was thinking of that, and I was thinking of installation.
But not any EAs or fellow crafts.
If that passes, yeah. The
You can't publish it. You can
That's
take
right.
the photos. Just
You take it.
You can't send it to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm still
Can't even
bitter.
show it to somebody.
You can tell I'm still bitter about that one.
Yeah, no, that's completely reasonable, I think.
I don't know. It
Let them debate it and let's vote there.
Yeah, exactly,
This
yeah.
one's too much to kind of go over on the podcast, I think.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just think it's minutia. It's
Yeah.
one of those
Yeah.
things that I'm.
I think at face,
I think we all know we're not supposed to take pictures of the degrees.
Yeah.
I think we all kind of know that.
one would hope.
Okay.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Next one's going to be simple.
Yeah, so resolution number 12 makes it so that service awards and service award notices no longer have to be requested by the lodge secretary, but instead are sent by the Grand Secretary's office without needing the request from the lodge secretary. Personally, I kind of love this. I'm sure Brandy loves this. This makes life a lot easier
Should have
for
been done
lodge
a long time
secretaries.
ago.
Yeah.
And this is how Grand Chapter and Grand Council do it. If you are a secretary of the chapter and council, your 50-year guy notices gets sent to you. You don't have to request it. It's just sent to you, period. And your DDGM gets a copy of it as well.
Put them in the mail and let's go.
Yep. So let's go, full steam. Let's talk about resolution number 13 here. This resolution makes it so that allegations of Masonic offenses are sent to the Grand Secretary instead of the Grand Master, how it is currently, requiring the Grand Secretary to then forward it to the Grand Master with the reason that this streamlines record-keeping efforts and contributes to a more steady year-to-year transition between Grand Masters.
Because if a Grand Master, like right now, or 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, charges are filed, he has the charges, not the Grand Secretary.
Yeah.
So if the Grand Master passes away, goes out of office, we got to get the files from him.
Yeah.
What if he doesn't have them? He forgot where they're at, or blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Or they were destroyed or
Right.
something,
This is-
you know.
So basically, so it goes to the office of the Grand Master instead of the Grand Master
Office
himself.
of the Grand Secretary.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But it goes to the Grand Lodge, I guess.
Yeah,
That's
it
what
goes
I'm
to
trying
the
to
Grand
say.
Lodge.
It goes to the office of the
100%
Grand Lodge
in
instead of
favor.
just this
Yep.
one guy.
That way, somebody knows what's going on.
Yep.
At
Yeah.
all.
I think this is a good one for
Continuity.
sure. So, you know, and I love me some easy resolutions. Okay, so here we go. Resolution number 15 adds the clause, quote, for the purpose of advancing education through the provision of scholarships, end quote, to the list of reasons a lodge may authorize the formation of a nonprofit corporation in Article 339A. 339A has a long list of reasons why a lodge may authorize a nonprofit corporation. This basically says, hey, you can do a nonprofit corporation for scholarships too. Honestly, I'm pretty sure there's lodges out there that already have nonprofits for scholarship purposes. I'm just glad that this adds that as an availability. I don't know that there's any discussion to be had on this one.
Approve.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe there's a little bit of discussion here. I don't know. Resolution number 16 fully eliminates Article 339.
Deletes it.
Fully eliminates it. Yeah, and it bans sponsoring anything other than International Order of the Rainbow for Girls Assemblies and DMLA International chapters. So 339A says you can't sponsor anything except for Rainbow and DMLA. On the basis that this allows, basically the resolution says it allows greater opportunities for lodges to do charity, and especially for lodges where there's not a local Rainbow Assembly or DMLA chapter. And
Why not amend it? Keep the verbiage that's there and say, or any other like youth entity with Masonic values, whatever.
But if you say Masonic values, then that opens up maybe like Boy Scouts because
because
they do have values, but they're not
I
Masonically tied.
would delete the word Masonic values and
Yeah.
say,
Okay.
'cause, you know,
Whatever you want to say. I'm just saying, why delete? Take the. I didn't know there was a.
well, so
Just delete this and just fix it.
I don't know that amending it fixes the problems. Because deleting it basically says you know, hey, we are saying you can sponsor those organizations. If we have to, then maybe later we could go and add something that says, hey, you should not sponsor
Well, what about-
organizations X, Y, and Z.
It seems
what
like
does
that's the
339
better way
say?
to do it, to ban organizations rather than to say you can only do this certain list.
Yeah.
Kind of like we do with the way that we can only lease out our rooms to certain organizations.
Yeah.
Or that Master Masons can only be members of certain organizations.
Yeah.
I think that if we go through and say you can sponsor anyone, and then if an organization proves itself to be unworthy of our sponsorship, then we as the Grand Lodge can say, okay, we are now going to vote organization XYZ off the list of organizations that can be sponsored by a lodge.
Like the Society of Philates.
Philalethes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I have a big problem either way with this. I do think it's a little restrictive as it currently stands.
I'm all about more freedom for lodges.
Well, this is
lodges
just-
to make their own decisions about who they sponsor and who they don't sponsor.
This is just sponsoring Masonic youth.
Yeah. So
you know, so this is where
So-
we concentrate sponsoring our Masonic youth, and
Yeah.
then you do away with it, and it's like, well,
but this is you can't sponsor anything except Masonic youth.
that's correct.
And so I think if we wholesale deleted this, like the resolution proposes, I think that'd be fine because, lodge sponsors its local youth group. Let's say it sponsors the local Boy Scouts, or maybe they sponsor the local Girl Scouts, or they have the Adventure Scouts, which is I think teenagers and it's co-ed.
Sure. Or a Little League baseball team.
Little League baseball
Whatever.
team, right?
Whatever.
Because that way you don't have to do a separate, entity that sponsors the Little League baseball team. You just say, hey,
Yeah.
no, like the lodge is the sponsor of the Little League baseball team. And then if it comes up that the lodge, hey,
Well, Billy, what do you think? You're a DMLA dad.
Well, I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, let the lodge sponsor what they want to sponsor as long as it promotes Masonic values. If the intent here is to avoid, promoting DeMolay or Rainbow, then, I'm not for it. But, I mean, let's be honest, how many lodges have enough members nowadays that have Rainbow and DeMolay age children?
Yeah, I don't think there's any lodge in Texas that doesn't have at least one member who doesn't have some sort of involvement with, even tangential with Rainbow or
Right. Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of like the small little towns in Texas where you may have plenty of DeMolay age kids, but may not have a DeMolay.
Yeah. So here's the
Or Rainbow.
here's the justification. So I summarized it earlier. Here's the justification from the resolution text. Whereas the charitable activity of Masonic lodges in their respective communities has and continues to allow greater opportunities for exposure, friendship, and member involvement of each lodge, and whereas not every lodge has a local chapter of the Order of DeMolay for boys or assembly of the Order of Rainbow for girls, and whereas the current wording of Article 339 prohibits sponsorship of any other organizations with the exception of the Order of DeMolay for boys or assembly of the Order of Rainbow for girls, therefore be it resolved that Article 339 be deleted in its entirety.
It'll be highly debated.
I think it'll be highly debated. I think there's worthwhile stuff because there are a lot of awesome non-Masonic youth organizations, that would do great with our support. And Little League baseball teams, any Boy Scout troop, Cub Scout troop, all of those are super valuable. And as it stands, we can't sponsor them as a lodge.
Does that only apply to youth organizations? Or is it
No, this would apply to, I think, any organization.
So, like, if we wanted to
it
sponsor
just says
a
fully
toy
limited
drive for Christmas or a...
Right.
Yeah, like if it could be a volunteer group that goes around providing jackets for the homeless or something, and all of the volunteers are legally adults or whatever.
Yeah, veterans organization.
That would open it up to that. So this is not youth specific.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of value to that.
Yeah, I can
So
agree with that.
I do have a comment on that, though. If lodges feel that, not having a Rainbow or DeMolay chapter, is preventing them from sponsoring people, and if that's what they want to do, if they want to sponsor Rainbow or DeMolay, that could easily be set up.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's one of those things that a lot of Masons seem to be waiting for permission to do something, and it's like, if it's not already there, then they feel like they can't do it. I mean, things like that could be easily overcome, but at the same time, I don't think lodges should be limited to, only being able to sponsor those two organizations, because there are some lodges where it just may not fit into their culture. For one reason or another, either due to age or due to geography or what have you.
This also works for lodges that maybe, maybe there's not a Rainbow chapter or a DeMolay chapter there, but maybe they don't have the resources to get it started with, in terms of time or commitment. But, they might have an existing organization, like an existing Boy Scout troop or an existing Girl Scout troop or whatever, that already has an infrastructure but might need financial assistance. That being said, if there is a DeMolay chapter or a Rainbow assembly in your town, definitely do be looking as those as priority number one. But
I would not be opposed to an amendment to this which privileges DeMolay and Rainbow, but opens it up to other organizations. Because I think that the big principal argument is going to be that by opening it up to everybody, then the Rainbow and the DeMolay is missing out.
Yeah.
But if there were some way, and I'm not sure that I know what the answer is, but if there were some way to privilege those two organizations in this by saying, you can, how you sponsor or how the sponsorship is set up, that privileges those two organizations, but still allows for other unprivileged sponsorships, then maybe that would work too. I think that would be a much more effective way to get this.
I get where you're coming.
I'm not sure
coming
logistically
from.
how
I just
it would
don't
work.
know how you would phrase that.
I know it would be difficult and it would make it very lengthy and procedural. But
We'll let the lawyers figure that out.
So let's talk about. So we're going to skip past Resolution 17 because, as we mentioned earlier, Resolution 17 is the exact same resolution as the holdover resolution number 7 from 2021.
Which has to do with if that one was to pass, endowed members would not have to pay per capita.
Yeah, and they would also be exempt from dues in all of their lodges based off of the way it's phrased. Let's talk about resolution number 20 really briefly. This amends Article 225 in the same way that resolution number 1 would allow the Philalethes Society to meet in Texas lodge rooms. Resolution number 20 would allow the Masonic Order of Pilgrim Preceptors to meet in Texas. I don't really know. Okay, we're allowing another organization to meet. Who cares? You know,
Unless there's some really heinous reason why we shouldn't.
I'll say I don't know
Go
enough.
ahead, go forth and be proper.
Hey,
I don't know enough
well,
about this to have an
so
opinion.
my approach is always this. Is this an organization that can pay our lodge rent? Yes or no? If
Well,
yes, come
as
on.
long as they're not like completely morally a bankrupt of an organization, okay.
Well, so I would
As long as they're a
assume
decent
that
organization, okay.
yeah, I would assume
God bless
that
and go for
any order that's the Masonic Order of XYZ, probably not heinous.
You've got to be a past master of a craft lodge and a Royal Archmason to be a member of it.
Okay, God bless and go
Technically,
for it. Make it happen,
past high
people.
priest of Royal Arch
Okay, so
chapter.
even higher.
Everybody listen to this who's a voting member, make this happen.
Was there a reason why they were disallowed from being here? In the
No, they just weren't on the list. Because so the way that our list
Nobody's invited them to
Yeah.
join yet.
So yeah, because our list it's one of the few laws that we have in Texas that says if it's not almost all of our constitution as a Grand Lodge is if it's not prohibited, then it's permitted. This is one of the few articles or one of the few legal aspects of our constitution that says if it's not permitted explicitly, it is prohibited. So any organization that meets in a lodge room, the actual lodge room, not like the dining room or anything like that, but the actual lodge room has to be explicitly allowed. So this would allow them to that. Philalethes was allowed and then was disallowed, and they're trying to reverse that again. This was just never added to the list in the first place. Resolution number 22. The summary of this one, as best as I can give it to you guys, is that redistricting requires a joint vote of all of the lodges in a new district and approval by the Grand Lodge of Texas at the annual Grand Communication. This removes the requirement for the approval by the Grand Lodge, and then it instead allows for approval by the Grand Master during the year to be included in its annual report to be included at Grand Communication. You know, basically,
Sounds pretty
it doesn't have to be
straightforward.
approved by, you know,
Yeah.
it gets finalized by a Democratic vote as opposed to approved by a Democratic vote, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Once again,
Not my dog, not my fight.
the lodges should be allowed to do what they see as necessary
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
within reason.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I, to me, it seems like it just streamlines the process of redistricting. So, okay.
It also takes resolutions that deal with redistricting off the ballot every year.
It
ends up being a summary issue rather than a resolution issue.
Yeah, because we have, 4 resolutions this year?
Yeah, like 14, 19, and 21.
Yeah.
Regarding redistricting, it's like, yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
Like Evie said, that just helps streamline
Yeah.
all this crap and, just makes it a lot easier.
We vote on it
I'm
in
sorry, it's not
summary.
crap. It's very important business and needs to be addressed with its proper attention.
If the listeners don't mind, we're going
I
to
apologize.
we're going to take a technical break so that I can bury my junior warden into the parking lot. Okay, moving on. Resolution number 23. We already kind of covered that. That creates the offices of orator and historian. This so we talked about it when we talked about resolution number 9. This has less detail than resolution number 9 and creates an additional office. So
You're
I think
in 2 instead of 1.
yeah, so I think any discussion from resolution number 9 can probably equally apply to resolution 23. Resolution number 24 charges the Committee on Masonic Education and Service with the assistance of the Committee on Work to research and produce authorized sheet music related to all of our ceremonies to be included in the monitor. It's not technically a law change. There's no article or statute or anything that's being changed. It's just saying legally we are saying as a Grand Lodge, go do this. I mean, is there?
No,
you guys have any thoughts on that?
Why are we going to send out a mandate without any sort of legal obligation to follow through? If it's just a suggestion,
It's just it's not a mandate for lodges to follow. It's just the Grand Lodge charging a committee to say, "Hey,
Come up with the
go do this," and then include it in the monitor.
So am I understanding this right? Where it's like Group A, you're in charge of this, but you're going to include Group B with you when you do it.
Well, they can get the assistance
Or
of Group.
okay, Group A, you have to do this. Group B, help them, or you can have help them. Yeah.
so
Okay.
if there's not a law change, what does this really do then?
Because it affects the ritual.
Yeah,
It's
so it's
ritualistic. It's
ritualistic.
parliamentary procedure, sir.
Yeah, if we had a grand parliamentarian, he could have helped us
Thank
out.
If
God.
only we had that grand parliamentarian to help us out with this.
Anyway, y'all are gonna make me feel bad. No,
It's kind of like having to do with the walking lecture.
yeah, it's like a ritual
Same
change.
thing.
So anything that would affect our ritual still has to go through Grand Lodge as a vote.
Grand
Yeah.
West has to vote on it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know that there's a whole lot of discussion here. I don't really have an opinion on it. And
I say do it if you want to do
Yeah, I
it,
mean,
because it's
yeah.
you can if you want. If not, then don't
So-
use it.
Resolution number 25 allows lodges chartered by the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Texas to meet inside of Grand Lodge of Texas lodge rooms, similarly to organizations allowed in Article 225. So this basically just says, hey, this is a jurisdiction that we recognize that is geographically inside of our jurisdiction as well. They can, meet inside of our lodge rooms if the lodge approves of it. I don't know. Is there any? I'm sure that at Grand Lodge itself there will be a lot of discussion.
I don't know that anybody in this room would protest.
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't think so.
This isn't hurting.
This isn't hurting anybody.
Yeah.
You know.
It's not gonna hurt nothing.
Yeah, our fellow Masons that we recognize.
Exactly.
Yeah. So resolution number 26 removes a ton of language from Articles 163B and 318A that removes restrictions on how much money can be given to lodges from the Permanent Endowment Fund each year. This is a decision that the Grand Lodge, as an organization, gets net negative results from because they don't reap as much money. However, it is written by the Grand Treasurer and the Grand Secretary. So, to me, this speaks in terms of
I like it.
this is in the interest of the lodges very much. So, and then we'll kind of hit here we'll move on to the Grand Master's recommendations. We're in the home stretch here. Grand Master's recommendation number 1, it restricts entered apprentices and fellow crafts from serving as pro tem treasurer or secretary unless it's just the ritualistic degree part. So for you Masons out there, every degree has a part where the secretary speaks. The entered apprentice has a couple more parts where the secretary speaks, and that's the ritualistic degree part. This allows entered apprentices and fellow crafts to pro tem that part specifically. It, however, does specifically ban them from serving as pro tem treasurer or secretary in all other contexts.
So in other words, they can't sit for opening and closing, but they can just serve as
during the degree.
Ritualistic.
And they also
Alright,
can't sit
makes
and
sense.
take minutes.
Makes sense.
So they can't be the secretary as an EA or fellow craft.
Yeah, you cannot pro tem the actual function of the secretary. You know, so
That's interesting. All right.
So
interesting.
I think it's pretty reasonable. I don't think we
It
should
ain't
be
hurting anything.
Yeah.
Come on.
And I don't know of any lodges that regularly ask EAs to pro tem the part of a secretary for a stated meeting, but
I mean, I'll tell you that I don't think there's a reason to restrict them from pro temming this because, for example, you're meeting on a weird night. You know, you're trying to do a thing, and it's like, come on, why can't we have them just do a thing? And I don't know.
Well, I think the concern this would bar them from participating in opening and closing, but I think the bigger concern here is having them actually pro tem as the function of that. Like, I think
Well, there is an officer position available for pro tem secretary and pro tem treasurer. I can add them to our lodge as that.
yeah,
So you need to be a master mason to do that job.
yeah, a master mason. But
I think this is just saying where they can be those two spots in the conferral.
Yeah, they can only do it during the degree portion, but let's say like a stated meeting.
Yeah, but
You
that says they
shouldn't-
can't.
So, right. So I believe this recommendation is saying that during, let's say, a stated meeting, you can't have an EA pro tem the secretary or treasurer position. Which, okay, I mean, I understand that, but I don't know. Now it sounds like big government's trying to, control what I do at the local level.
But yeah,
Um,
I've never read that.
let's go ahead and talk about recommendation number 2. This brings back the 1-year lapse for entered apprentices and fellow crafts. So I'll refer to the full text here just because I do think that's important. Grandmaster's recommendation number 2, whereas Article 343A currently allows lapsed entered apprentices and fellow crafts to receive instruction and sit in a lodge in the highest degree to which they have attained for an indefinite period, which could be many years. And whereas some subordinate lodges, entered apprentices and fellow crafts have led or sought to lead lodges despite not being members. And whereas it is the plan of masonry that master masons shall draw the designs in which entered apprentices and fellow crafts shall follow in their lodges, and whereas the plan of masonry will be preserved by restoring the respective roles within the lodge of master masons and those of entered apprentices and fellow crafts by limiting participation within the lodge of entered apprentices and fellow crafts who fail to advance within 2 years of their respective degree. Therefore, be it resolved that Article 343A is amended as follows. Article 343A, procedure after lapse of time. Whenever an entered apprentice or fellow craft must petition for advancement because of lapse of time, he shall be permitted to receive instruction to sit in a lodge in the highest degree to which he has attained and be examined in open lodge and voted on as proficient in the trial, lecture of the degree, last conferred, here's the addition, for 1 additional year, after which he shall not be permitted to receive instruction, sit in a lodge in the entered apprentice or fellowcraft degree until his petition for advancement is, and then here's the original, back again, received and dealt with in the same manner as a petition for affiliation as set forth in Articles 386 and 387, and must receive a favorable ballot of the Lodge of competent jurisdiction as provided in Article 430, except as noted as otherwise provided in Articles 39 and 414. So this brings back kind of the expiration date on entered apprentices and fellowcrafts. This has been tried before. This was a Grandmaster's recommendation a number of years ago. It was approved. And then it was removed by resolution a couple of years after that because I think it was in place for, 2 years? And then people were not happy with it, so they removed it again.
This wasn't a COVID thing, was it?
No, this wasn't a COVID thing.
Okay, not a COVID? That just kind of like, I don't know, just
Well,
smelled like
the
COVID.
COVID thing had there was correct me if I'm
COVID-
wrong, a special dispensation.
Yeah, there was
COVID
special dispensation, that's
froze
right. Yeah, he froze that, that's right, that's right.
And so
I stand
as
corrected.
it currently
Yeah.
stands,
Is when it was revised
when it was
that article.
revised, yeah. And so as it currently stands, when you lapse, right, you can still sit in lodge, you can still get an instruction. In order to get your next degree, you have to file a petition for advancement if you lapse. If
Paperwork.
you don't lapse, you don't have to file a petition for advancement, but you can still have all the same rights and privileges.
Correct.
It's basically less paperwork. So let's talk about Grandmaster's recommendation number 3. Recommendation number 3 is, and DP, can you pull up Article 2676A, just for our reference here? Whereas many worshipful masters, senior and junior wardens are not proficient to properly open and close entered apprentice, fellowcraft, and master mason lodges, nor are such officers proficient in opening and closing a Master Mason Lodge of Sorrow. And whereas the lack of required proficiency in performing the ritual duties prescribed for the principal officers of the subordinate lodges in this grand jurisdiction has become widespread and is growing, and whereas additional training in the ritual duties of the principal lodge officers will enable such officers to become proficient in their performance as lodge leaders, therefore be it resolved that Article 276A be amended as follows. Additional qualifications. Prior to his installation as worshipful master or warden, a brother shall in all circumstances first be qualified as follows. Paragraph 1 unchanged, paragraph 2 unchanged. Then this is a full edition of paragraph number 3. In all cases, unless otherwise exempt as hereafter provided by attending at least one forum conducted under the auspices of the Committee on Work during the 12 months prior to his installation as worshipful master, senior warden, or junior warden. Brothers who hold a Class C certificate or are certified as proficient by the district instructor for the Masonic district in which the lodge is located, a district instructor at large, or a member of the Committee on Work are exempt from the requirement imposed by this paragraph. If an officer is being installed as a worshipful master or a warden in multiple lodges located in different districts, the officer is only required to be certified as proficient by only one district instructor at large, or a member of the Committee on Work for exemption. This kind of sounds like the resolution from a couple of years ago, right? Which required guys to have a C cert, right?
I'm wondering, like, what's the cause of this? Why? Okay, every rule, every law has a reason. What started this? Because I thought we already had a system in place that ensured that your wardens and your master were proficient.
No.
I thought we did.
Some lodges, it's at the discretion of the lodge. So
Right. So the discretion of the lodge. You're right. Maybe that's my fallacy here. Is I thought that
in the
I
debate,
thought the law would hold the lodge would hold. Oh, you're going to be junior warden. Oh yeah, here. Yeah, you're good enough. You know.
Yeah.
And it used to be that the district instructor had to certify them that they could open and close, and then it changed. And I remember the big debate at Grand Lodge was the guy says, "Well, if we can vote them into our lodge, why can't we vote them to be an officer?"
Yeah. And so, because this is basically very similar to what happened a couple of years ago.
Just
right?
saying, basically, like at Phoenix, if you're senior warden, not necessarily you're going to the south, or several lodges do that. If a guy, but typically the guy senior warden senior deacon would have to attend a forum within 12 months of being installed junior warden or senior warden of his lodge. So, but say if a guy Earl on the sideline gets elected to go to the south, and he's never been to a forum, but he already meets the criteria, done the live program, been to officers training and all that stuff. That's what that other article is. He can go, and the district instructor can certify him. Committee on Work or district instructor at large can certify him. That's instead of saying, "Hey, you have to have a C certificate to serve."
So this basically offers more flexibility than the resolution that was offered a couple years ago.
Right. Well, so our DDGM this year very much held us to task as his job, details, right? And he made sure, by golly, that our worshipful master, our senior warden, junior warden, had either successfully completed the life program or the Committee on Work programs, the 201, 202. And he wanted to see all the paperwork lined up before. And of course, we were able to submit it because we have our ducks in a row. We at 148, we like to have our ducks in a row. Anyway, but no, we did. We had everything.
Secretary submits the forms for your deputy, your wardens, and your master. You have to put with the documentation. This is where they went to the.
Yeah, that's absolutely, and we did. We honestly did, and our DDGM was very diligent about it, and he was on us. He was on us a lot. Like, hey, I need to see this, and rightfully so.
And to be fair,
we did.
Just to clarify for our listeners, we were not because I want to absolve us a little bit here. He was not paying special attention to us. He was looking for this from all the lodges in his district.
Absolutely,
we were not a problem child.
No, absolutely. And I went into the south, but I left the secretary's chair and I went into the south, and so I was the guy that had to handle a lot of that paperwork, for my, I was outgoing secretary and, hand us over to them. But no, he did very much did. And, but no, he's doing his job. He's like, hey, I need to see this paperwork. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, here it is. He had a copy of our minute book, had a copy for him. So
what I hear is the concern or the reason would be more ritualistic in nature than
What he's saying here is that there's too many lodges where guys can't even open and close.
right. So this gives a process and a sign off of a Grand Lodge person to say that yes, you're sitting in the west and the south, you can open and close the lodge correctly and efficiently.
Or at the very least, you showed up to a forum which teaches you how to do that.
Right.
I think when you and I talked to DP, when you and I talked about it a couple of years ago, we had a grand old discussion of sorts about it.
I can't remember.
You and I argued. Okay, so you and I argued about it over the course of
You and I?
Yeah.
Argue.
Yeah.
no.
This is why
Friendly
DP,
debate.
This is why DP and I get along so well. We both love to
I
argue.
think we've agreed on 2 things, maybe.
Yeah, we rarely agree, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
But you and I argued about this thing because at the time I was very much in favor of everybody should have a C cert before being a warden. Whatever. Now I've kind of softened on that, but I think this is a good compromise because it's like, hey, you at least went to a forum,
But if you can't go to a forum, the district instructor, committee on work, or a district instructor at large can certify you.
I feel like that's pretty flexible.
Here's 3 other things. If you can't get to the forum, you got to work, other issues going on.
Yeah.
There's not one close to you, whatever the case may be. Especially if you're junior deacon right now.
Yes, sir.
Junior deacon. If something happened and they said, hey, guess what? You're going to the south.
Oh boy.
And you don't know until election night, and you get elected, then you got a month per se to find a forum to go to say, hey, whatever.
Much nicer if I can call a district instructor and say, hey,
What's
There you
up?
go.
Help me out, brother.
There you go. Yeah.
Help me out, brother.
So we'll skip number 4 and go to number 5. Grandmaster's recommendation number 5 streamlines and redefines the duties of the Masonic Widows and Orphans Committee to more accurately represent present-day conditions. So basically the idea here is that Article 118 says that the Widows and Orphans Committee is supposed to help the graduates of the home and school in getting employment and getting established in business and all these other things. Grandmaster's recommendation number 6 creates the Lodge Building Improvement Grant Fund. And so it's a longer recommendation. Basically, this says, hey, there's a lot of lodges that are physically in disrepair. What do we do about it? Let's open up a system for them to get grants.
This affects, because it has to do with creating where Grand Lodge will give money to help out lodges. So we're not talking about matching scholarship funds here of $2,000. We're talking tens of $20,000 for a roof. That's what this has to do.
Yeah.
So here's all right.
That's a sticky wicket right there.
So
'cause,
here's Evve having feelings again.
Oh boy.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Who gave him his soapbox back? Who?
All right.
Sean? Is
I've
that
kept
you?
my mouth shut. Here we go. It's all bundled up onto this one resolution. If a lodge cannot maintain its finances, so much so that the Grand Lodge has to issue money to them, that means to me that that lodge is not financially responsible. So why are we going to give them more money to be financially irresponsible with? If you don't have, there are a number of lodges we all know whose dues do not facilitate maintaining their buildings and their infrastructure. And if you are not going to raise your dues to an appropriate level so that you can maintain your building, why is it the Grand Lodge's responsibility to then come bail you out?
Hold on. I want to challenge you with a question.
Okay,
Or
challenge away.
no, not challenge you with a question, but I want to challenge you with a change of verbiage. You say a lodge is being irresponsible, but what if a lodge is just incapable of being solvent? What if it's a small, tiny lodge?
Okay, then you need to find lodges to consolidate to.
Okay,
or
and
you
that's
need
fine,
to
and I will
reduce-
accept that.
Or you need to reduce the size of your Masonic footprint
I-
by getting a smaller lodge,
Right,
or going and
right.
renting a space that's more affordable.
What I'm thinking of is Podunk, Texas, tiny little lodge. You've got like freaking 10 active members in a town of like 500 people. You know, you can't really call them irresponsible if they just can't charge enough dues to keep
But
the
if
lights
they're
on.
not,
There's a
if they're
certain
not
point where-
financially
Right,
able
right.
to pay their bills, then
Right.
just like you and I, if I can't pay
Right.
if I can't pay my mortgage,
Right.
I need to sell my house and go buy a place that I can't afford.
Right, and I
That's
understand
what
that.
lodges
So,
need to do.
yeah.
So, but my point here, ultimately, though, is if a lodge is in disrepair,
right.
why is it our lodges, all of our collective lodges' responsibilities to then go bail them out if they are not
Yeah.
not doing what is necessary to heal
Because in that
themselves?
case, man, I can't afford to fix my roof because, man, if I can get this guy to pay for my roof, why should I pay for my roof?
Exactly.
Because
So
our
in the
temple
same-
does need a new roof.
Yes,
and,
so-
well,
and-
you
and
know.
So what are we dealing with in our temple? People who are
Yeah.
against raising the dues per capita in each one of
To
our
an appropriate
contingency
number.
organizations.
Yep.
So I don't see a reason why this needs to be a thing. Now, if there needs to be a program where lodges can petition the Grand Lodge, and there is a criteria that is transparent that
A relief
says
fund.
we have done this, and this in an attempt to maintain our fiscal and
Yep.
financial future. We have already taken these measures. We've already done this. We're doing our best, but we
Right.
need a hand in doing this. I am more
Exactly.
than
So,
happy as a Grand Lodge to do that. But
That's why this is a grant fund. Grants still have to be approved.
Applied for and approved. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
does that? But
I
does,
can read the
but does
text,
the
the full text of it.
criteria, does it maintain the fact that we need to make sure that these lodges are not just in disrepair,
They don't
but
have
they have
$40 dues.
so they are not $25 dues or $50
Well,
dues.
I think if I charge my guys more than $10 a month or $10 a year, they might leave me.
Going back on Gabe, the last item G on here, the trustees may establish an informal board consisting of one or more members of this grant lodge to assist them in evaluating the request for the grant. So here's my big question here. Said lodge, tornado comes through, they don't have insurance, blah blah blah, whatever the case may be. Roof is gone. We need $20,000, $30,000 to fix the lodge. They go to this thing passes. Okay.
Sure.
Say it passes. They go there and they say yes.
Okay.
We're going to give you $15,000. We're going to put in half of it.
Because it's a matching fund.
Right. Here's my question. One, who's going to see that the repairs were completed? Two, who's going to verify that said grants money from the Grand Lodge was used specifically for the repairs of the roof? Are they going to have a committee going out throughout the whole state of Texas, driving down there? Who's going to check? Hey, we gave you $20,000. What if they didn't use that money for this? There's no. Is it a Masonic offense? Is it not? I don't know.
Do we withhold their per capita?
Who's going to travel the state checking these repairs that said money was used for? We're not talking about just.
You're kind of
also
saying
think about
that
this too.
you're kind of saying that if this did go through,
We have to decide what we're doing with it yet.
yeah.
The what now?
So subparagraph E talks about 30 days before the next communication is when we have the qualifications and requirements to receive the funds. So this is to proposals to make it available,
Right.
and then we talk about it next time and make the rules of how you get it.
Right. So,
Oh, so
but who checks it? That's what
So,
I'm saying.
so you're saying that if this
Hopefully it
did
would be
go
the
through,
DDGM,
we would
hopefully.
still need
Sorry, Gabe.
some level of infrastructure and that we don't have that level of infrastructure. Okay.
Well, it falls on the trustees at next year's Grand Lodge.
Oh, I'm gonna.
to
Well,
recharge
so
it.
that's a different thing.
Hey, Grand Junior Warden, I'm going to need you to drive to
El Paso.
El Paso to check on that. Remember they had that foundation crack that we gave them $10,000 to fix? I want you to check and make sure they fix it. I mean,
I want you to go out there with a level.
I mean, how do you,
In a plumb
I get the intent.
and a square.
Right? And so,
we're not talking about like your house roof or the
Yeah.
insurance company. Hey, man. Hey.
so I do get the intent, right? And like
Sure.
in the broader sense
But you're
of
right.
in the broader sense that, kind of using the branch office analogy, right? Like the Grand Lodge as a corporation has a vested interest in supporting its branch offices, i.e. the lodges, in terms of masonry, and again, this is not my favorite way to think of it, but in many senses, masonry is analogous to a product sold by a business in which masonry is the product and masons are its customers, right? And candidates are the inflow. It's in the interest of the larger, quote, corporation to help the branch offices out during times of need. But I'm with you guys in the sense that there's a lot of way open stuff in here that is left far to interpretation, especially if we're talking about stuff like, hey, we're going to figure out the criteria at the next grant communication. That's very broad.
I think the criteria needs to come first. We need to see the criteria that we're voting, because if we put this out there and we say, yes, we're going to do this, and the criteria is basically a blank check for next year, I am not okay with that. I am not okay with giving Grand Lodge, even though I trust Masons implicitly, I know that there's just too many ways in which transparency can be made opaque.
Yeah.
And the transparency needs to come first. We need to know what kind of grant program are we signing on to?
There's a lot of money involved.
Can't you sign up to be a speaker at the thing and I've got questions.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want from me.
Grant communication's already a long enough ceremony. We don't need Evve up there to get up there.
Y'all are already
All right,
telling me to shut
sorry
up
guys, I brought my box. I'm going to stand on it and we're going to talk.
I just have so many, because a lot of the needs that I see going on right now in Freemasonry, especially as it relates to Masonic buildings, are self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
That they are lodges who are shooting themselves in the foot by being...
They're trying to be too nice, I think, to each other and themselves.
Well, I'm not even sure it's nice. They're just being financially irresponsible with how they are structuring their bills
the caveat
and
there is
their
that
dues.
I think approaching it from the perspective of financial irresponsibility does kind of wash away the fact that for a very long time, Masonic lodges and the members thereof have had a long-term, a very different long-term understanding of how long their lodges would last and how important their lodges were in the community and stuff, where, I'm not saying that Masonry inherently drags behind the times, but in many aspects, Masonry is kind of like a cultural time capsule. And a lot of that involves, assistance from the community and levels of community involvement.
You gotta have community.
Where I think guys maybe had more, culturally lodges had more of an expectation that when things went wrong, they as part of a community would be part of it, such that community members, which were also members of the lodge, would help and step up. However, because of the decline of Masonic membership and stuff, that has not translated. And so, as misguided as that is, our long-term planning didn't account for really bad, catastrophic building type stuff, because there was just kind of an understanding that as members of the community, we would be taken care of by other members of the community. That didn't translate.
But I also see that,
that
Masons are notorious
Yeah.
for doing stuff on the cheap when it comes to trying to get building repairs.
Yeah, brother, hey, I know a guy that's a roofer.
I know a guy who's a roofer, and it turns out that he might be great at residential roofing, but when it comes to roofing a commercial building like a Masonic lodge, suddenly he causes more problems than he solves.
Sure.
And there's always these things that keep coming up in Masonic lodges, and I just don't like the idea of this blank check.
Yep.
I really think that we need more details.
And kind of our last item here, let's talk about resolution number 7, or recommendation number 7. It basically creates a special committee using members of the Committee on Work and the Committee on Masonic Education and Service to create a 2024 revision to the monitor of the lodge. I don't know that there's any discussion to have on that.
Wait, what? They want to update the monitor? How dare they?
How dare they, right?
Yeah, they need to update it. Keep it
So
updated.
basically, this would be just kind of I know that we kind of update the monitor.
Housekeeping? Is this a good word for this?
It's a little bit bigger than housekeeping.
Yeah, I mean, it's
we release new editions of the monitor. Like, let's say we vote on something that, hey, we're changing the phrasing on this, or we're making the apron presentation officially part of the master's degree, things like that. That'll go into like kind of an annual edition of the monitor.
Yeah.
What they're going for here is maybe more of a broader, more involved revision, but that's why it's like, hey, we're setting the due date out in 2024.
Man, I wish they would go back to the little bound little books they used to have. Gosh, golly, I love those things.
The tiny ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Pocket.
Yeah. The
No,
monitor.
it wasn't quite pocket size. I don't know. I think it was like 7 by 5 inches or 7 by 6 inches, but it was bound. It wasn't like the 3-ring hole punch. It was bound copy. I have
like
one of
the-
those.
Oh,
the
the
bound
I'm,
ones.
I'm old enough to have one. I'll bring it by. I'll show it to you one of these days.
He's got
It's an
5 of them.
antique
I guarantee.
version.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah, you've seen those little bit.
I guarantee
Love
you
those,
that
so
if
cute.
you,
He's got Sam Houston's.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
if you
It's the
own
one
a,
Moses brought down from
if
the
you
mountain.
if you go and hand it to Sam Houston,
Yes. Go
and-
forth, my son.
Go forth, my son. Yeah, I guarantee you, if you have an item of Texas Masonic literature, DP's already got 3 copies.
Excellent. Excellent.
So yeah, I'm just gonna say who's available for different positions. I don't
I think
think
these are all excellent.
I don't
candidates,
think
by
it's
the
our
way.
place to discuss. It's not
All
within.
excellent.
It's not in the
They're all
propriety of the
excellent.
podcast to discuss any of their qualifications. If you want to see their qualifications, it's in the Book of Resolutions and Statements of Availability. If you want to know more about them, go ahead and talk to them. They're both on Facebook and they both have email. So for Grand Junior Warden, we have George Moxley and Rayburn Reeder. For the Committee on Work, we have Steve Pepper and Timothy Wayne Smith. And for the Library and Museum Board, we have Russell Brown. So these are all the guys that are making themselves available for those positions. But yeah, it's been a long episode. I hope you guys, I hope the listeners enjoyed it. Many thanks to the hosts of the podcast and to our special guest, Don Paul.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. And thank you to Billy for calling in. And I'd like to close this out with a quote of the week. And that is, you can't get very far until you start doing something for somebody else. And that is by Brother Melvin Jones, who was the founder of the Lions Club. So, if you'd like to learn more about our lodge or the podcast, you can reach us at fortworth148.org or at fortworthlodge.com. We are at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook. Our email is info148@fortworth148.org. And you can learn more about Texas Masonicon at texasmasonicon.com. That's texasmasonicon.com. I'd like to make a special announcement as well. Tickets for Texas Masonicon 2022 are going to go on sale at Grand Lodge Communications. So once the session starts, it'll usually be that Friday. Tickets will go on sale for summer of 2022 for Texas Masonicon. And of course, like in years past, we will offer a discount during the period of time in which Grand Lodge Communications is being held. And of course, as we get closer to the date, that discount will be rolled away. But, first come, first served, early bird specials at Grand Lodge. So, all right, listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. This is Gabe Jagush signing off.
Jeremy Gwin signing off.
Brandy Patton signing off.
Evve Kuykendall signing off.
Sean DeBond signing off.
Billy Hamilton signing off.
Don Paul Payton signing off.